Bam, we're live. Bam, we're live. Bam, we're live. Good morning. Pretty pumped about today's show. Pretty pumped. This guy, Joshua Broome, popped on my radar. Wild story. Wild story. He's done so many podcasts. Been in some big spaces. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Sean Ryan. It was the Sean Ryan podcast. I think, was it the Sean Ryan podcast? I saw a reel on the Sean Ryan podcast, from the Sean Ryan podcast, about his journey from being the male porn star of the year to finding Jesus. I must have seen some clip, and that totally intrigued me. I love Jesus talk. And then when I invited him on the podcast, and he said, "Oh, I've been doing CrossFit since 2009. Like, no shit. And then there's a crazy twist in the Sean Ryan podcast where he mentions CrossFit. I didn't expect that at all. Crazy pivot. What's going to be weird about this podcast is yesterday, from the second I woke up to the minute I went to bed, I was basically consuming Josh Broome content. There is so much content. I wonder how many views he has total on the internet. I mean, he has podcasts with 20 views and he has podcasts with 1 million views. And he's told his story so many times. In hindsight, I wish I could have all of you guys watch that Sean Ryan podcast. Sean Ryan did such a good job. They're in the room together and he's so patient. And Josh Broome is such a good speaker, and he goes through his entire story from when he was a little boy to the present. And Sean does an truly incredible job with all sorts of follow-up questions. Yeah, I didn't realize how amazing Sean Ryan is. He really, I don't have it in me to like other podcasters, but he was really amazing. The follow-up questions are crazy, and he's able to ask Joshua questions about the porn industry that don't make it, I was going to say salacious, but there's a better word. Arousing would be a better word. Sometimes I'll hear people just talking about sex or porn and shit like that, and it'll be arousing. And it's kind of a weird thing because this guy has definitely stepped on that. That's definitely not what he's doing. He has this incredible fucking hook, right? Porn is massive. I bet you Josh knows how massive it is. I don't know, but I hear stories about how it's like half the fucking traffic on the internet, shit like that. Crazy stuff. So a ton of people must be watching it. But there's so many follow-up questions. But basically what was nuts is there's these two lines he said. There's this line he says somewhere in the Josh Broome content I was consuming yesterday. He says this line that basically you become what you consume, right? And so if you're consuming porn, then you start seeing the world through all the porn you've watched. And if you're consuming the Bible and Jesus, you start seeing the world through the Bible and Jesus. And that's a pretty hardcore simplification of it. But I definitely see it as true, because throughout the day, I felt like basically the whole entire day I was just studying the Bible by listening to him. It was wild. I really enjoyed my day yesterday. Just everywhere I was, whether it was at my kids' jiu-jitsu or gymnastics, or I was driving in the car, I was consuming Joshua Broome content. And it felt like I was just getting the Bible explained to me. And there were some things in there that were like crazy, insightful to me. So hopefully he'll come on, and hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys along on the journey, and I won't take a ton of stuff out of context, because I consume so much already. You know what I mean? Like I read his book, of the story of his life, and I want to ask him a ton of follow-up questions, but I also don't want to leave you guys behind as the viewer. Hey, dude.
Hey, man. How are you?
Awesome. Amazing. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, super glad to be connecting with you, man. I can't wait to do this. It'll be cool. Been watching the pod for a long time. So
no shit.
Yeah, dude. So I've been doing CrossFit since like 2009. So yeah, I mean, huge CrossFit guy. It's just a massive part of my life in a multitude of ways. But yeah, it's like
a little to the left. Can your camera person hear me? Little to the left. Little to the left. No, I'm just fooling around.
Oh,
I saw them adjusting the camera. So I'm a little to the left. This is Caleb. Caleb, meet Joshua.
Caleb, great to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Joshua.
So if you've consumed some podcast content, can I be saved?
Absolutely.
Could I have been saved and not know it?
Probably not. You probably could
okay.
be saved. You would know it for sure.
Okay.
You would know it. You would know it for sure.
Because I'll be honest with you, I think I've been saved and I just don't know it. But you explain that a little bit. You explain that in the book, 7 Lies That Will Ruin Your Life. If you know any man who's 17 to 30, have them read this book. Have them get the audiobook and tell them to try to crush this in 2 days. Give that as an assignment to them. I was just telling the audience that basically yesterday, from the second I woke up to the second I went to bed, I've been consuming Joshua Broome content, and I felt like I was studying the Bible all day. That was not my intention.
Yeah.
But
that's the way I like to, jujitsu people.
Yeah, it was good, dude. It was so good. And I'm concerned that I was telling people that they really need to go watch your podcast with Sean Ryan. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. The two of you were great together. His follow-up questions, your generosity with your stories. And I'm concerned for the listeners, because instead of doing a podcast, I feel like just peppering you with my own personal questions.
Let's do it, man. I love just interacting with people and answering questions. And even though I share my story often, it's, I try to just say, hey, if I'm having it's like if you're recollecting something that was somewhat traumatic and also like important to you, even, oh my goodness, this ear thing is killing me. Hey guys, could you help me with this real quick?
Yeah, I got you.
Someone with soft hands. I don't want any rough hands touching Joshua's ear. Someone with soft hands do it.
Yeah.
that baby face. I don't want anyone rough scuffing him up. The book's fantastic, guys. I really cannot recommend this book enough. This book, and even if you're not a Bible beater, or you don't want to go down the path of finding Jesus, there's like just great lessons in here of what young people need to know as they build their identity and what to avoid.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And Josh, that's you reading it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
I would say out of the all the stuff that I've done, that podcast with Sean Ryan was, about I think we used about 3 hours and 16 minutes of the content. We, recorded for about 4 hours. We took one break, but out of all the things I've done in media like that, recording that audible, the audible version, the audio version of that, it was 3 days, like 9 hours, because you got to like match your cadence, your flow, any diction in your voice, where if you've stopped, you got to pick up just so there's, it's congruent. But it was tough.
I powered through it. I didn't make it to the end. I was listening to the Sean Ryan podcast, and then you talked about your book. I'm looking at the clock, and it's 11 a.m. I'm like, holy shit, can I finish this one more podcast of his and listen to the audiobook at 2 times speed? But the parts that I heard were great. And of course, since I heard your podcast with Sean Ryan, it was extremely thorough about your journey from the day you were born up until the present. I think you did the podcast like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And there's a ton in there. And he asked you a ton of great follow-up questions. And I was telling the audience before, sometimes when I'll listen to stories about porn, I'll get aroused or it'll be salacious. And you guys were able to do that without any of that happening to me. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, that is, if I'm telling that story to, a group of, teenagers, there's going to be a nuance to it. I'm going to contextualize it in a way where I'm digging into the nitty gritty details, because I want to frame it in a way where it's like, hey, it's not what you think it is. The experience for me is not what I thought it would be, and the danger in consuming it is real, and being in that industry is not at all what I thought it would be, and what anyone that I've ever interacted with, whatever presuppositions they might have going into it, it was never what they thought it was. So that's just my heart is in, I'm going to give you enough details not to elevate it in a way where it seems something that would be advantageous for you to step into, but to share with you the reality that, I mean, I did think it was a good idea when I did it. But man, was I wrong.
And your journey into the porn industry, the way you tell it, and then your stay in the porn industry, the way you tell it, is not you tell it in a way that like, hey guys, I'm not unique. This is the fucking nightmare. Yeah. And the hard work and the lack of fulfillment that this journey gives. Like there's nothing here.
Yeah. And the connection.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the connection point is myself, like many young men. I grew up without a dad, and guys are just wired to do stuff, to want words of affirmation, to build, to break, to achieve. Like most men have a high achiever personality, and if you filter in that some level of brokenness, well, it's distorted, but you still have it. So my story is that, I didn't have a dad growing up, but my dad was across the street, literally like a mile away. So I saw him, my mom and dad were 15 when I was born, and they are in proximity to where I am. And I see this guy get married, have 2 other kids, and my mom and I are growing up in this, fine situation. Like I wasn't starving or anything like that. But the reality is I didn't have this dad, and I knew who he was, where he was, and I saw him often. So, just the way that we fill in the gaps of our life is like, what doesn't make sense of us as a child and even eventually as an adult? Well, I have to make sense of what doesn't make sense to me. So I have to fill in the gaps of the story. And often we have a proclivity to fill in those gaps in a negative sense. And I just believe, man, if my dad doesn't want me, then I must be the problem. So maybe I can be the solution. So if I do enough, become enough, earn enough, maybe then and only then I would feel like I was enough, because what I felt like is there was a dad that was, close by, that was choosing just not to have me in my life. So that kind of set me on this journey of, man, I want to show him and prove to myself and everybody else that I am somebody. So it was this high achiever, good work ethic, that I was doing some good things, but I was doing it for the wrong reason, because I just wanted people to affirm me. And I guess at the end of the day, I just wanted to hear my dad say, I'm proud of you. So I thought I could like earn like a synthetic version of that.
Has he ever said that to you?
He hasn't. We have connected, and I think that's the big thing with most people, where it's like, just unforgiveness in general. Like at the end of the day, like reconciliation is more often than not going to match your expectations. And if your expectations are not met, it's going to keep you in that, that bitterness and that unforgiveness that you're trapped in. At the end of the day, when you are trapped in unforgiveness, the only person that pays the price is you. Like that person that you've not forgiven, they're just living their life. They probably have, it's not impacting them at all. So for me to be trapped in this cage of like rage and bitterness and just all this frustration, I had to forgive him, not only if he would do X, Y, and Z, it's even if he didn't choose to be a good dad, a grandfather to my kids, be in my life. I had to just choose to say, hey, I'm going to let go of what I can't control. And I'm just going to control what I can. And for me, so we reconnected, and there were apologies that were given. But the reality is, I meet him at 30 years old, and I've lived a whole life, and, we don't have a ton in common. And, I'm a grown man. I've got my own family, own career, stuff like that. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hope one day that we can, sit at a table and hang out, or like go fishing or go hunting or go do something. Maybe even like as a family. That hasn't happened yet. But I think if I would hold on to, if that doesn't happen, I can't be content in my life. That's only going to hurt me. So I just refuse to live that way. And I think so many people do. So that's the last chapter of the book. It's just this idea that forgiveness has to be the way that you want it to be, because essentially you're trying to play God. It's like, if I can't maintain autonomy over my situation and the outcome, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going to continue to feel bitter towards this person if they don't do what I want them to do, or the relationship doesn't look like how it used to look like, and I'm going to be trapped in my feelings. And at the end of the day, that's not good for anyone, but most importantly, it's terrible for you.
I want to. When your parents, how old are you?
42.
42. So your dad's only 57.
Yeah.
That's crazy. In what year were you born? 80.
82.
82.
Yeah.
How do two 15-year-olds get together?
Yeah,
and make a baby? Do you know that story?
I don't know. I don't think that they were in this, like, it wasn't this like high school romance where they were like dating since they were like in kindergarten or anything like that. But I mean, we're talking about a town of like 3,500 people. So I mean, they were in the same grade. They had eyes for one another, and they snuck off and and hooked up. And here I am. I don't think it was this like elaborate love story. And I think like that in itself, like that's why there wasn't a continuation of the relationship, because I mean, they, just the way that sex will work is if you have it, there's the potential for creation of a human life. So I think it was, I don't know if you even say they would say it was a mistake. Maybe they ought not have done it, but they did. And my mom was just like, I didn't want to be pregnant, but here I am. And an abortion is not an option for me. So, she had me, and I grew up in this, at my grandma. So it was at my grandma and grandpa's house. And, so she had two younger brothers and a sister. And we lived there until we were around, I was around like 7 years old. She gets married to this guy I was from 7 until 11. This, drugs, physical abuse, emotional abuse, terrible situation that lasted about 4 years. And she
Did you live with them? Did you live with them?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. So he didn't like move into your grandmother's house too?
No. So they got married.
Wow.
And then, because like my mom at this point, she's 22 or something like that. And so they get married, they get a house that lasts for about 4 years. And then, finally enough people said, hey, you got to get out of this relationship. And she did. But yeah. And then after that, I think just because my mom is like such a proud just hardworking person, she could have just moved back in with her mom, but there was a level of shame because, she had already, made the choice to have sex with a 15-year-old. And then, I was born, and then she felt shame about that. And then she gets in this relationship, and he's literally a meth addict, and he's, beating on her and stuff. And so it's like, she didn't know that going into the relationship, but the last memory I have of him is like he's like siphoning gas out of her car, and he's like beating on our door trying to get in. But she got out of that situation, and then she just felt shame about she made a bad choice, in regarding to how I was born, and then she made a bad choice with this guy. So you know, in retrospect, it would have made sense for her to move back in with her mom and her mom and dad. It was just like a great situation, but she was just like, hey, I've made my bed and I've got to lie in it. So I'm going to work 60 to 80 hours a week and I'm just going to figure it out. And that's what she did. And she just has incredible work ethic, loves people. And she worked at this restaurant and she worked her way up there, but she worked all the time. But I think it was in that she just felt a level of shame because it's like, man, I made this decision and then this other bad decision, and I can't go back to my mom and dad's. So I guess I just have to, you know, figure this out on my own.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, so they're half. So so there was Michael, who from that marriage, from the not so great guy.
Yeah.
But his name's Michael. So he's a professor at Clemson University. He teaches genetics. And my dad has two other kids from, you know, his current marriage. So he's been married since he was like 18. So like 2 or 3 years after I was born.
Wow.
Meets this girl. They've been married, you know, for
what state is this?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. All right, that makes sense. That comports to all my judgments and harsh judgments of the Carolinas of the South. You know what you said about your mom, what you got is you said your mom loves people, and that definitely, you definitely got that. That definitely emanates from you, that you love people. In your interviews and that I've seen, I always trip because I spent some time in LA, and obviously I'm in California, so I know a lot of people from LA. And unfortunately, Los Angeles does not make very good people. There is a veneer and a superficiality to them. Oh my God, I'm just totally found my authentic self. I can't believe how authentic I feel. I'm so free and now authentic. I'm just like, holy fuck, what is going on?
Yeah, it was wild.
It must have been a really weird place for you from the South for a guy that's very loving and probably not a very transactional person to end up in the transaction capital of the world.
Yeah. I mean, so I was back and forth from New York, and I was in Miami a little bit, and then I moved to LA. And so I lived like in the middle of everything. So I lived like on the bottom of Laurel Canyon where it crossed Sunset Boulevard. And so right by, you know, like everything. And I was like in the middle of that. And then after a few years, I realized I didn't have to like be in the middle of everything to have access to everything. So I moved to Sherman Oaks. And so I was there about 11 years, and it was definitely very eye-opening, very transactional, you know, just, you know, even the people that worked at like, you know, people who were like somewhat struggling, like actors or photographers or whatever they were pursuing, the thing that they did to kind of mitigate their income, they would work at, you know, restaurants and stuff. And they would tell me that the restaurants, they don't require like a resume. You go in with a headshot. And it's that's just, you know, the world that I was a part of. Yeah.
You made 1,000 movies, is that correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in the industry almost 7 years and did 1,000 films. So we were, you know, there were months where I would do between like 25 to 30 films because, like, you know, thinking, because, you know, to age myself, you know, it's like this in the age of DVD. And then really you know, the not the pinnacle, but the beginning of, you know, streaming media. So like internet porn, in that there were, you know, websites that you could go to. So the mass quantity that they were producing was, you know, most production companies were shooting like 5 to 7 scenes a day. And then people who were doing DVDs, which were like 5 or 6 companies, like, you know, Vivid, Hustler, those companies, they would shoot a 5-scene movie for a DVD. So those would have 5 scenes in them. They were producing those, you know, multiple times a month. So there was more than enough work to go around. But the directors, they would generally just hire just a small group of guys, because, you know, you've got the guys on set, you know, whoever's doing sound, whoever's doing video, the girl, catering, like the permit, you've got all this like bottom line, but the only person that's not guaranteed to get paid is the guy. because if the guy can't do his job, then there's no end product. And you generally have a director that's contracted with a production company, and the director is handing the production company a finished product. So if you have, you have your crew, you have, every expense that you would have to create a production, but then if the guy shows up and the guy can't perform, can't do his job, well, you've lost the day. You've lost, at least that scene. So they would just hire guys that they would trust that could get the job done just over and over again. Because at the end of the day, for the most part, well, back then, the guy was somewhat irrelevant. It's like, if you could get the job done, I can trust that you'll do it, and I'm just going to hire you over and over again. So there was like 50 guys that just worked 20 to 30 times a month, and I was one of them.
And you know how in fights they'll have a backup fighter?
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch the UFC, but they'll have a guy who weighs in just in case.
Yeah.
I didn't think about this until you were saying this just now. Did big budget porns have that, where they would have a backup guy?
No.
No?
Generally it's like, you're the guy,
I mean, I was thinking this maybe not a bad idea.
Yeah. I would say it's like, if it was bad, but not like completely horrible, it's like they would somehow like fake it. But it's like, for sure, if you blew it, if you messed up the day, for the most part, unless you have a tremendous amount of equity, like with that director, you're probably never going to work for him again. Because you just cost them $20,000-$30,000. So for the most part, they're just going to hire the same people over and over and over again.
And I'm guessing the ways you blow it are either you come in looking like shit, you can't get erect, or you come and they don't get the shot.
Yeah. It's like, and then every once in a while, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me, hey, are you, well, when you were in the industry, was there a lot of drugs and alcohol?
Mm-hmm.
And if people showed up on set intoxicated or like super high on blow or whatever it might be, you would get kicked off set because, in LA County, it's the cops would always come to set to check the permit, and they were generally like peeking around, like, trying to get a look at the girl. But like always, especially when we're shooting like in the valley, if we were like anywhere around there, a cop would always show up to set and check the permits. But he was generally trying to get a peek also. But that was if someone was on set and they were like wasted, well, that could lead to a multitude of problems. Not that never happened, but for the most part, the production companies that I were a part of, it's like if you were like high or anything like that, or like super hungover, for the most part, unless you were, there were some girls that were just like the elite of the elite, and you're not sending them home. It's like whatever you had to do to make it work, you made it work. But if you showed up kind of wasted or whatever, for the most part, you would get sent home. But after the fact, because I would say like I have around 40, so it was 47, now it's 49 people who have died of overdose or suicide that I was in the industry with. And far more than that. And it's really interesting to look at regarding how many girls have been murdered that have been in the industry for the last like 50 years. Because you think about it, it's like those girls and guys for the most part, but mostly girls, you view yourself in that my no loses its validity. The only thing I can say yes to is selling myself for sex. So then you go out into the world and you want intimacy and connection, and you'll seek out people that are going to accept what you do for a living, and you're somewhat used to and accustomed to being manipulated. It's almost like the person that's only experienced chaos, they're going to drift towards chaos, because peace and quiet is actually calamity, because I'm not used to that. So I find comfort in chaos in a strange way. So those girls would drift towards people that were abusive, and that would lead to them being physically assaulted to the extent where they were murdered. And the amount of people that's happened to in the last 30 years is insane to look at. But yeah, 49 people who've died of overdose and suicide that I was friends with. I knew their real names. We broke bread. We hung out. We partied together. Many of them, lived together. I have one roommate that's still alive, that I lived with when I was in the industry. So it's just bizarre world. But it just leads to the fact that, man, you can only do that job for so long, and then there are significant repercussions of living that way. So to the person thinking that that's an advantageous, career, especially with OnlyFans just like booming, because with OnlyFans, like for a guy, when I was in the industry, like when I got in the industry, it was 2006, so a long time ago. It was really hard to get into the industry as a guy. Like you either needed to know someone, or somehow, some way, someone gave you an opportunity, and you crushed it, and you continued doing it. But now, because you can stream for your home, so all you need is a girl that's willing to hook up with you, or a guy that's willing to hook up with you, and you hook up your iPhone, and then you can throw it on OnlyFans, and now you're a content creator. And because there's no barrier or no like hoops to jump through, any kind of like checks and balances, anyone can do that. So I would say to the person doing that, man, there's going to be significant repercussions of you living your life that way, just like any public persona. But now you're putting the most intimate parts of your life in a way that, you probably don't want to be seen on the internet.
There's this thing that you say, and I don't remember where, if it's in the book or one of the podcasts I saw, but basically the content you consume is basically how you'll see the world. And I'm sorry if I'm mischaracterizing that. I'll let you unfuck that in a second. And it's so true, because yesterday, as I'm listening to you all day, when I start listening to Bible stuff or any spiritual stuff at all, I start seeing my faith. Like my faith is a living faith. Like I see God working all around me, always conspiring to help me. And I only saw that, by the way. I also was erased. I had the same journey as you, where how am I going to kill myself? I don't want to hurt myself. How am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And then I was I had my experience with a giant ball of light, and I got erased, and I was like, holy shit, that thing killed Sevon. And it was a remarkable thing. And then ever since then, I see my faith everywhere. I'm like, holy cow. I mean, that day it started happening everywhere around me. The universe is conspiring to help me, to serve me. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And so when I get into that mode and listening to people like you, I start seeing it like everywhere, at stoplights, and looking in my kids' eyes. I just start seeing it everywhere. And on the other side, I showed my kids like Enter the Dragon from Bruce Lee. They watched like 4 Bruce Lee movies in a week. And for the next month, all they were doing is whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And so it's like, you see it.
Yeah.
And so if you're watching porn, you're basically turning every fucking chick around you into a fucking cum dumpster. You just see her as a walking 3-hole phenomenon. And I don't mean to be so crass, but that's the truth of it. And that's, I feel like, also a component of what you said on a really deeper, scarier level, of a girl who's in that thing that you said is the explanation of they don't say no.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, wow. And that ends up to getting murdered or overdosing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just it. That's like you say, I have one roommate who's alive. Most people will be like, I have one roommate that killed himself, not I have one that's alive. You're inverted in that industry.
And you're thinking about that. So that industry, when I was a part of it, it was, about 1,500 people that were working with somewhat consistency, probably even smaller than that. So think about a small high school. If your classmates, if around 50 of your classmates took their life or died of overdose, like that would be, you would pull the e-brake on the school year, probably. Yes. Everything stops. And that's my reality. And 100%, like your input will determine your output. The things that you consume will determine the way that you engage with the world. And, I'm sure you guys have heard of who Forrest Frank is. He's a Christian. So he's a Christian musician, but he's had like 3 or 4 top 100 songs like in all of music this year.
What's his name again?
Forrest Frank.
Okay.
But it's like bubbly, like poppy songs, super trendy. But he shares that he was a virgin, and so he's 30 years old, like somewhat newly married, has a kid. But he watched porn from the time he was 12 until he got married, and he was believing that, I'm living this pure lifestyle even though I'm watching porn. And then he gets married, and then on his wedding night he tries this like weird aggressive thing like on his wife, and she's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? Like, where did you learn that?" And he like steps back and he begins to weep, and he's like, "I know exactly where I learned that." And the reality is that when you're watching that, you believe that that's real. In that it's you believe that it's a really good idea. But what you
Yeah.
might not know is that there's two broken people that are carrying that out. There's a director telling them what to do, and the interactions with the people, it's not for each other for pleasure, it's a performance for the camera. Like even the act of sex that's happening, it's not for connection, it's for one another. So it's like as you're experiencing that, like you need to know that's like in the same way, like if you see a gnarly fight scene like Inception, when
Yeah.
they're in the elevator and like a
Yeah.
slow mo and like all this crazy stuff is happening. Well, the reality is there was choreography there. There's paid actors. Maybe there's stunt doubles. There's CGI. There's editing on the back end, and what you're seeing is a fantasy that's a finished product that is a product of manipulation to stimulate you in a certain way. It's not just something that you just happen to take a glimpse into an elevator and see that. It's not from the camera inside the elevator. In the same way, like when you watch a porn, it's not just like you're sneaking a peek at two people having sex. This is a production. There's choreography. There's a director telling them what to do. There's different camera angles, and when you like as just as simple as like when you see the girl that's like staring into the guy's eyes, well, you're not staring into anyone's eyes. There's a cameraman over your shoulder with his elbow in your chest pointing the camera at her. It's like, I mean, that it's so far removed from what it is, but if you believe it's real, then you're going to act it out. And what we're seeing is there's people that believe that, well, I can just walk into a room and have sex with a girl. So if I take a girl on a date, then sex is the expectation, right? And then it's just really messing up how people view just relationships and intimacy in general, but sex even more so.
This post I brought up, it says love gives and lust takes, and the act of watching porn, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way at all, but it's just taking.
Yeah.
It's completely taking. It's not like you're like, okay, I'm gonna masturbate, and you light some candles and you sweet talk your penis. You're just like, hey, give me a 30-second clip. I'm just taking.
Yeah.
It's and that is not what you write love gives.
Yeah. I mean,
It's the complete opposite. And so if you're learning about sex from porn, then you're just in the taking phase.
yeah, I mean, and that was my education. So I never
Yeah.
had a male role model whatsoever outside of sports. And then I saw porn for the first time at 13. And we were at my cousin's house. He pulls it out, and he's got magazines and then a VHS tape. And then we watch it, and then I'm like, this is the first time that I've really even seen like a male and female like engaging in any way, because I grew up in a home that I didn't see a mom and dad or really my grandfather and grandmother like connect in a way, like holding hands, hugging, like any of that, kissing. I never saw that. So all of a sudden I see sex happening. I'm like, well, maybe, this is something I'm missing out on. And if I replicate what I'll see, maybe I'll feel what I feel in this moment, because I feel kind of good when I look at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, so for me, it was educating me on what I believed that connection was. And then very quickly it's like, man, I'm gonna find a way to act this out. And then I lost my virginity around like 14 years old, and then that was just kind of set this journey onto for the next 8 years. And then I'm in LA, and then it's a group of headhunters that walk up to me, that work for a porn agency. And they're like, "Hey, would you ever want to be in the porn industry?" And I thought it was like such a weird question because I didn't really think porn was real. Like I thought that it was real people, but I never thought it was like an industry to enter into or a career to take part in. I never conceptualized that because that's what it does. It causes you to commodify people in a way because there's this, it's vague and obscure in a way, and those pixels are actually people. But if you the more you take, you start to learn, well, I'm supposed to love people and use things, but it seems like maybe I can use people and love things. And
Wow.
I start to live that way. And so then, I get to a place where I would have never said yes to that if I wasn't hooking up and I saw porn, and if I would have had a reason to say no to the thing I knew that I probably shouldn't do, maybe I would have said no. Maybe I still would have said yes, but it was an easy yes for me because I didn't have a reason to say no, if that makes sense.
That's a wild line. Love things, use people, as opposed to love people, use things.
Yeah, I mean that's what it teaches. Like it teaches you to commodify people, and if I'm learning to commodify people, then well, that's going to bleed over into my real life. And a lot of the work that I do is I'm helping people, take this off ramp into this addiction. And I mean that the reality is, consuming porn is an addiction. It is, sex addiction is a real thing because I mean, you look at the prefrontal cortex of your brain that is impacted when you consume pornography. If you look at a CT scan, you can look at a CT scan of someone who's been watching porn for 5 to 7 years on, let's say 5+ times a month. Then you look at someone who's been using heroin for the same amount of time. The tracks are not as significant regarding the pathways going up to their synapse, but they are visible on a CT scan in the same way. A porn addict versus a heroin addict, you can see the tracks to their brain, meaning that you felt something, you did something, you felt lonely, you felt sad, you felt overlooked, you felt frustrated, and that emotion is now tied to a stimulus where if I feel bad, I want to feel good, and this is the way that I remember. My mind, my body keeps score. So my body keeps score of what I do when I don't feel good. So what I do when I don't feel good is I go and watch porn, and that starts to develop a pathway where I get that dopamine hit. I watch porn, I orgasm, I feel better, but then I wrestle with shame, and I go through the cycle over and over and over again. But I'm writing a story that I remember in my mind, and it starts to alter. And then the prefrontal cortex, why it's so important. And I think this is so diabolical, because your prefrontal cortex, it regulates your emotions and it controls your impulses. So it regulates your impulse control. So if you look back to I think it was World War II, that Germany was sending in pornography to the U.S. troops. And this was the first time that a chaplain was sent in mass quantity to troops because they were consuming so much pornography that they started to be like minimized in their resilience, and they weren't looking out for one another, and they were being hesitant to go into battle. And it's because porn literally it impacts your brain in a way where it makes you not want to do the thing that seems scary. So it's like we're trained to do this, but now I'm training myself to think differently. And then the porn was removed, and then their actions changed. And this is so detrimental because average age of exposure is around 8 years old. It used to be 11. Now it's trending towards 8 years old. 11 was around the same time that you would get your first cell phone. Now, because of the utilization of screens in elementary and middle schools, now kids are seeing it younger. 84% of the time when kids see porn for the first time, it's secondhand exposure, meaning that they were in an unsupervised place or at a friend's house, and it's shown to them on a screen that's not protected. So they see it. Well, now that porn, it starts to mess with their brain, and an 8-year-old, their prefrontal cortex is only around 40%, 30 to 40% developed. So now it's damaging the part of the brain that regulates emotions. So we see this huge upswing in anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation going along with pornography consumption, because they feel something and they're medicating themselves with something that's actually detrimental for their brain. So that's why I do so much advocacy in like age verification and things like that. It's not a barrier. I'm not saying it should be outlawed. I'm saying that if you're going to put something in the public square that has been deemed neurologically damaging to children, well, in the same way that tobacco, alcohol, rated R movies, anything that is detrimental to the brain of a young person, there should be rules and regulations. How do you stop kids from having access to something that's dangerous for them? I think it's just logical, in my opinion.
As you're talking, I look out my window here. It's 7:44 a.m. and I can see my kids playing Nerf gun wars, running amongst the fruit trees in the backyard. I have 2 8-year-olds and a 10-year-old, and they have a friend over. And they're 7:44. They're doing Nerf wars. You know what's crazy when you say that? At 8 years old, from my earliest time I remember being aroused was 5. Whenever I would get around my kindergarten teacher was this beautiful redheaded lady, Mrs. Allen, but I never, even at 8, I never attributed it to sex. I had no context for it. Only in hindsight do I have context. I knew that like I really liked her and I wanted her, her attention. And even at 8, I knew that like something was going on with my body, right? But I never attributed it to sex. And I'm like, I heard a story one time. It was this reporter was telling a story. She lived in New York City and she moved to upstate New York. And she had this romantic relationship with this guy who was a farmer. And she said the sex was so fucking weird. She said it was like no sex she had ever had before. This was a few years ago. She wrote about it in this book. I wish I could remember the name of the book. And then later on, after talking to the guy had never seen porn.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. And she said it was the most unique, like different than any other guy she had sex with, the greatest connection, all this shit. And then she made that connection. He had never seen porn.
Yeah.
And and that's when I think of what it's like being 8. Like you're not supposed to make a connect. You're supposed to sit with those feelings and let them cultivate and percolate. And like, I just can't imagine being 8 and already knowing what like someone telling me what those feelings were and me not just slowly letting it kind of, blossom on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the danger. It's like, I mean, the Bible talks about like not awakening, that aspect of your mind, your body, your soul until it's time to do so. And
it does talk about that in the Bible. It does talk about that in the Bible.
Yeah. But I think like at the end of the day, it's like when we think about marriage, like the vows that we recite, like most vows, if your standard vows, one of the last things you'll say is you may now kiss your bride. So what is that insinuating? You may now kiss your bride. Then there's been some aspect of waiting, and maybe it's the first time that you've kissed your bride. And I'm obviously that's not my story, but the point in that is that there is something beautiful in the design of having no presuppositions and just coming together and collectively just figuring each other out. I mean, that's why there's so much data that says that, in a monogamous relationship, over time, the sex should get better if there's connection and there's health and there's no like weird stuff going on or, cheating, or like you guys are healthy and you're connected and you continue to have sex on a regular basis. Well, as time goes on, it should get better. But what I'm seeing in the counseling world and in a lot of the other work that I do with young adults, it's like they're trying really hard to wait until marriage or do the best they can and then get married, but they've been addicted to porn for 5 or 10 years. And they're like, well, you don't line up with my fetish. So I'm having a hard time, connecting with you because you're not willing to do all the stuff that I've been watching for the last 5 years. And maybe your body type isn't, my preference. And I think, it's like we are. I mean, women are beautiful. It's like it's so easy to be attracted to them in their beauty, but it's like to go to the extent where it's like I'm I have a particular part of the body that is more enticing than others. Well, that's learned behavior. That's not like you don't just come up with that. There, you've seen something that stimulated you, and now you've formed, like, cognitively, you've bonded to that because you saw it, you liked it, and it made you feel a certain way. So I mean, it makes sense. It's like, man, I like to do stuff that I have fun doing or makes me feel good, or eat foods that I like, or drink things that I like, or go to places that, create, a certain stimulus in my mind or in my body. Like, I want to reenact things that I enjoy. So it's like when you have a preference, it's really a perversion. It's not really a preference, because
I
it's
thought
like,
the boys in high school who said that they had a preference, I was like, what is wrong with these boys? I know what I don't want. I don't want
yeah.
a bitch. I don't want someone who's mean to me. If you're nice to me, we're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely nailing it. You know what I think part of the problem is how close in proximity also we all live to each other.
Yeah, and it's such a wild thing too, because I learned this about a year or so ago. So dating is only it's only been going on for 120 years. Like, the
Mm,
whole concept of dating, and what was catalytic in dating was the automobile. So once you had the automobile, you go outside of your town, because for the most part, marriage existed between it was arranged marriage, or
mhm.
you lived in a town, and there were families that were around the same age, and there this guy that I'm friends with has a daughter. We are around each other a lot, so it makes sense for
There was a
you guys.
practicality to it.
Yeah, yeah, but now there's, I would say, like, we are at the victimization of, variety and choice, and I think, like, that's what pornography does as well. It's like, it's almost like if I ask my 4-year-old, "What do you want for lunch?" And it's like, I need it. Do you want chicken nuggets or do you want a burger? He can make that decision. You can have anything you want. What do you want? I don't know. Like, he'll
Right.
say something bizarre. But I think it's like, when we have unlimited choices, that's not necessarily a good thing. And when we start to crave that variety, and, well, it's like, well, monogamy is going to look like I'm fencing myself into something, and why would I just do that?
How big is the porn industry? I read something like it's like a third or of the internet traffic. Is that when I hear stories like that? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. So around 32 to 34% of all the internet traffic on a daily basis is pornography. If you go, there's a website that you can go to that's the most, that gets the most site visits in a year. Pornhub and two other sites has been in the top 10 for the last 10 years. And then I would say another, like, absolutely bizarre statistic. So if you take the collective earnings of the NBA, Netflix, and Disney, and you add them all together, that's going to come up to about $153 billion. I'm not talking about just in the U.S. Worldwide, all means of pornography globally, pornography 2024, 172 billion, $19 billion more than the NBA, Netflix, and Disney all combined. And it's like, you go to the past election, 7 swing states, to kind of push people in the direction of voting. There was an ad that was ran on Pornhub that said, "Hey," well, it was a guy that was masturbating under a cover. A guy walks in and, like, snatches his phone away and says, "Hey, if you want to keep watching porn, you better vote the right way." And, in cut. And it's like, why would you do that? Well, 100,000 I'm sorry, 100 million unique users in the US per day. Like, how do they make all this money? Regarding revenue from running ads, one porn site makes
Oh,
$4.7 million running ads per day.
I was wondering. I was like, how can the porn industry make money when it's all free? But ads, who is that ad for? Basically, you're threatening, like, hey, if you vote for this person, we're gonna take your porn away, and then
Yeah. So
100 million men in the United States panic. Oh fuck.
Yeah, so I mean, I was sharing it with Sean. It was like it was in favor of the Democratic Party, but it was a third party that was doing it. So the
Vote for
initiative,
Trump, and when you lose your porn.
yeah, if well, it's like if you do vote for Trump, you will lose your porn, but
Holy shit.
you better vote against him so you don't.
Jesus
So
Christ.
that was the positioning. So you better vote against this initiative because his wife has been, for a very long time, very outspoken about a lot of anti-pornography legislation.
Melania?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so she was the one. So she was actually in the room celebrating when. So there. So I live in Dallas, Texas, and the age verification had been implemented in about 27 different states. Louisiana was the first state to implement age verification, and it's just simply saying, hey, if you want to access a website that has pornographic content, you've got to provide age verification. The way you're going to do that is you need a government issued ID. They're gonna scan it, and it's AI third party. They verify it, toss it. There's no, we're not gonna keep your data. It's not cookies or
I don't
anything.
believe it, but go on.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, it's
I am
like,
not giving any porn site
yeah,
my ID. I'll
yeah,
go with that.
yeah.
I'll go with
So
that. I'll use my imagination.
yeah, but to that point, so Louisiana was the first state to implement that. Consumption went down 80%.
I bet.
Because
I
like
bet.
you don't want to leave a digital footprint, but it's like so 27 states have implemented some kind of variation of this, but in Texas, they were saying if websites don't adhere to this, we're going to implement a $50,000 fine. And they started doing that. And once they implemented a fine, the Free Speech Coalition then brought a lawsuit against the state of Texas saying this was an infringement of your First Amendment rights, which it's not a barrier, it's a boundary, which,
Okay.
that's important. So it goes to the Supreme Court, and in July it was upheld. So that was a huge deal. And then actually the Supreme Court justices that voted for it to be upheld said there's actually no reason there shouldn't be some type of boundary, some kind of verification process to access this content. Because in the same way, if we remember just like 20 so years ago, like regarding baseball, like there were players on the field smoking cigarettes. Like there was Marlboro like billboards everywhere. Like it wasn't, cigarettes. Cigarettes are not only cool, maybe they're even good for you. So now we have enough of these anecdotal stories and significant pieces of data saying it has been proven, not in this like one-off, in hundreds and thousands of cases, that there is this legitimacy of cigarettes causing cancer and a variety of other things that are detrimental to your life. So you are in America, so you have freedom to do things that you ought not do. Have at it, but I'm gonna put this warning on it, and we're gonna put this strict restriction on it. So you have access to it, but there is a boundary to how old you need to be so that you can be, cognitively aware enough to I'm going to make this decision in spite of the danger. So porn should be in the same way. So essentially it was like, hey, there's no reason that there shouldn't be some kind of boundary in between them getting access to it, especially when you can just, you don't have to look for it. I mean, this, you don't have to look for pornographic content. You can find it.
It's not going to even stop anyone. You could still find it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not weighing in on that, but people, it's not like you can't find porn without probably that. I've never seen that where they ask for an ID, but it wouldn't stop me if I really wanted to see it.
Right.
I just keep Googling different words until I found a video that was free.
Yeah. And what's wild is, so there's another piece of legislation that's a big deal is Section 230. So Section 230 allows Twitter, they can house child porn on their hard drive, know it's there, monetize it, yet they're not held liable for it. Because 17 years ago, there was a random website that someone posted something obscure. Someone tried to sue them because they didn't want to see what they saw. And then that website said, hey, I didn't put this on there. It was a third party. So now there's a piece of legislation called Section 230 that allows social media websites, specifically Twitter, to have complete immunity regarding what's on their website. And, to the extent where there's been non-consensual like child pornography on Twitter, the person that was abused, that had this put on their website, it's saying, hey, please take this down. Like, this is causing my child so much pain, so much problems. Please take it down. And they refuse to do so. And so like that's the next thing that everybody, it was age verification, and now that's the next thing that we're saying, hey, this either needs to have like some pretty significant changes, or maybe we just need to trash it and write up something else. But just because of a simple thing, because in 1996, you never would have thought, because like even like when you consume content, because like think about like late night, like Skinamax and HBO After Dark. It's like
Yep.
if you stayed up too late, there was an opportunity that you might see something you don't want to see. So you be careful what you look at that time of day. Well, because of streaming, and because of this, because of an iPhone, you've got access to the world at the touch of your fingers, and you can watch anything at any time. There's no like time of day where it's more dangerous to consume content because of streaming.
Hey, Joshua, I just remembered this. I haven't remembered this in fucking 40 years, but I used to stay up as a 12-year-old boy. I would stay up till 11:30 or 12. And I would hope that that's when all the scary TV shows would come on, like Dracula and shit, and those scared the shit out of me, so I would avoid them. And I'd be flipping through the 3 channels looking for Benny Hill, because I don't know if you remember that show, but in the very beginning of the show, the intro, there's a scene where he's on the side of a creek and he's fishing, and he puts his fishing line back and throws his fishing pole, and he rips this woman's dress off. And what she's wearing is 90% more cover than what, like, if I went to the beach and saw girls today. Like, it's just crazy at the beach now. She still was in like big granny panties and a giant bra. But I would watch that at 12. That was like my stimulus, and then I'd go to bed. I'd be like, all right, I saw it. You know what I mean? It was just like, do you remember Benny Hill?
Yeah. It's a different world though, man. So you're in NorCal? Is that where you are?
I'm in Santa Cruz.
Oh, sick. I'm actually I'll be there soon. I'm coming to spend some time with Jason Khalipa.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, we're gonna hang out.
Oh, wow. I would will you stay in touch and let me know? I'd love to come out and see you. I'd love to bring my boys and have my 3 little boys meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome. Yeah, he I'm sure he's gonna try to kill me, but we're gonna film a podcast and hang out and eat some food, and so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, man, I'd love to hang out.
Could you share me your story? Share the story of your awakening, your rebirth?
Yeah, I'd love to. So for me, again, grow up, without a dad, looking for approval, started modeling and acting at 13, 14. So that kind of,
that could have gone horribly wrong.
It did, it did. It was part of it, because that was the reason I was in LA. So my undergrad was studying theater, and that was just kind of part of, if I could understand, voice diction, position, because if you want to act, like, it's one thing to get something in 1 cut or 2 cuts or whatever, because you get different angles, and it's like, oh man, I got to read 2 pages of line. Theater, you're out there, baby. It's like you either live audience. So I love that, and that prepared me to do a lot of things. And I wanted to act, but I had more success modeling. But just that world, and then it's like I was in a fraternity and all this stuff. So it's just like started having sex at 14, no dad, broken, felt like I had something to prove to the world. And I go to LA, and then I'm invited into this porn industry. And I thought, man, because I was having mediocre success, in modeling and acting, nothing great. I did a few movies. I made most of my money modeling.
And when you say modeling, what's that look like? Like underwear ads or wearing a sweater, or like, what is that? What is modeling?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, so I did a lot of runway. So runway paid okay, but then commercial, it's like residuals would be better. So I didn't like crush it or anything like that. But yeah, I did like some Ed Hardy, like Von Dutch, like stuff like that.
Okay.
But like nothing crazy. But just like I was out there like trying to make it, and like things were okay. Like I had representation, and the meetings that I were had was going well, and it looked as if there would be upside, to that
And
career.
were men hitting on you? All the male models I've ever known, they get into some weird situations with other men.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I would say, but yes, yeah. Like the modeling industry, so weird. Like it does the blow and like manipulation and sextortion and does all that happen? Absolutely. But just think about this. I think it was 1923, the first silent film was released, and then right after that, the first porn silent film was released, and
Wow.
that porn was titled Casting Couch. So if you were to title something like that, well, there's an assumption that the contextualization, that the audience is going to understand what you're saying. Because if you title something that is something vague and obscure, like what does that even mean? No, that was a clear understanding that Casting Couch was this scene, this thematic, movie around there's a girl that's going to a job interview, and her getting the job is going to consist of her being willing to have sex with the employer. And that was the name of the film. And it's like, it's so wild.
Wikipedia calls it The Devil.
The devil
as the first porn film. How perfect is that?
Even more. Oh wow, that's even earlier. But there was maybe it wasn't the very first one. There was, but Casting Couch was one of the early with the devil. That's wild, bro. That's even wilder. But yeah, man. Wow, the devil.
Wow, listen, one of the women faints and is sexually assaulted by him in the first 69 position. This is 1907, isn't it? But really quick, I don't mean to derail a story, but that's just typical? Like that really explains men in a way. They come up with a camera to make movies, and what do guys do? Fucking 5 minutes later, they're like, let's make a porn.
Yeah, because I mean, you can trace porn back to Mesopotamia, etched in a cave, 2000 BC.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not a new thing. I mean,
right.
So I was just in Seattle, and I guess they just changed. I was at the OG Starbucks, and I guess the original like Starbucks like person, yeah, like she like it was
she got her titties out.
Yeah, but this was an ode to a goddess of sex, and it's like this was something that was normal in Ephesus and in Corinth, in these places where like there were idols and prostitution was like worship, and it went hand in hand. But my point was that like sex and the methodology in which we pursue sex and the way that we see it and it being commercialized is not a new thing. But yeah, so it's like I go out and I pursue that, and these girls invite me into the porn industry, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do one, not thinking it's going to be a big deal. And then the first porn film I did, it was for a really popular website, and then my fraternity brothers saw it, and a few other people saw it, and then just the reality that if you're from a small town, well, it only takes one person to know one thing for everybody to know everything. And went through the grapevine. Someone told my uncle, and my uncle told my mom, and then I get a phone call, and it's like, Joshua Luke, did you do this? And I said I did, and I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Because when I did it, it's like I thought I was just gonna, like back in the day, it's like those little like camcorders that everybody would like go on spring break with. I thought that I was gonna like get a camera and go in a room and have hook up with this hot girl. No, it was like a full on, I walk in, there's girls in makeup, there's catering, and then there's camera A, B, and C, and there's someone shooting BTS, and there's this arena of kino flows around this girl in this daybed, and I never talked to her. And then this guy comes up to me and says, hey, we understand this is your first day. Here's a Viagra, buy it in half if you've never taken one. We need you in 30 minutes. And I'm just like, dude, what do I do? And I just like pop the whole thing, chug a thing of water, and then I just gotta like walk into this abyss. and this director's like, do this, do this, do this, and all of a sudden it's over, and I'm just like, that was not fun, pretty gross. And then like, you got a sea light like underneath, your junk, and you got someone like literally like, back in the day where these like massive cameras. So someone's like literally like sitting a camera on top of you because
it wasn't fun at all. Not
at all.
wasn't none.
No, not at all. And then so I was like, I'm not gonna, and I got paid like $400 or $500. I'm like, I could make that bartending, at Saddle Ranch or something. It's like, this is crazy. And I'm like, for sure not doing this again. Yeah, hard pass. And then all of a sudden
let me ask you this. You in the podcast you said you felt dirty afterwards.
Yeah.
And you why what is that mechanism? Why did you feel dirty?
Well, it's because so it would be one thing if you just like hooked up with a girl that you weren't really into, and you just like, well, I probably won't call her back. But like this is like literally there's this guy with a camera like on you, and I'm just like trying to get out of the way. And it's like, the girl, like she's looking past you or at the camera, and it's like went in between cuts, like she's trying to gather herself, and like you're just sitting there like, you're literally like, masturbating, trying to keep an erection. It's like, it's just so weird. And then, you got 10 to 12 people just like staring at you while you're doing this. And it's so methodical. And then even at the end, like when it gets to the time where like you're going to climax, it's like everyone cuts and the guy masturbates until he gets close, and then they say action, and then you act as if you're orgasming. So like everything is staged, everything is fake. And it's just so weird that how could you not feel awkward and dirty afterwards? And I remember like, we were shooting at these, I think we were in like Chino Hills or like somewhere like random. And we were at these studios, and like in the shower, there was like a bottle of like dial dish soap, like in the shower. And I'm like trying to, cause like, I'm like, there's like lube in the hair of my legs and like all over me. And I'm like trying to get it off. And then I'm riding home, and I just feel like so disgusting. I'm like, I will never do that again. And then I get a call from my management, my mainstream management. And normally when I get a call, it's a good thing, because like we're going to discuss, a proposition where it's like, there's this thing, there's a company that wants to shoot you, or there's this opportunity or whatever. But they sit me down, and she's pretty stone cold faced, and she's like, hey, it's our understanding that you've done some pornography, and it's just our stance that we just can't in good faith continue to represent you. So we're going to be letting you
go. They never warned you about that ahead of time when you first signed with that talent agency, that like, hey, if you ever do, but just so you know, LA's got porn everywhere. If you do one, you're out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was in something I signed, because I mean, there was this like, my image and likeness, like where it's used and how I'm viewed, like does,
right.
I am representing this organization. So I'm sure it was shared to some context, but it's like, I was a young idiot. So anything I was signing, I was just like, whatever. I just want to make money. I just want to go places. I just want to be seen. I just want to do stuff. Like, I don't care.
Right.
And if you would have asked me, I would have said, sure, I would never do that. I would never. But when I did it, it blew up my life. And for some reason at 22, I believed, man, the thing that blew up my life, that seems like the only like viable option for me going forward. So just in my middle of, I'm embarrassed that my mom knows that I did this. She's really upset with me because, again, like, I mean, my mom, as a young mother, when I started modeling and acting, like, getting photos, like, doing before everything was digital, like you used to have like a physical like comp card. So you would have like a headshot on one side, and then like, you and like if I was doing a runway thing, it's like a full shot of me like in a bit like a business casual or in a suit, and then a shirtless photo to like show my physique or whatever. Just kind of like here's all the elements of me. But like getting those photos were expensive, especially for someone who, we were living in government housing, food stamps, like all that stuff. And like my mom, like somehow, like me being able to do that, getting to go to basketball camp, like stuff like that, she had to like work super hard, and she'd invested in that because it was important to me, and I was having some success in it. And so it's like we both lost, and so it's like I blew it, and now I've hurt my mom. And the only thing that made sense for me is like, well, what else am I going to do? So I just decided, okay, whatever I'm doing, whether it's, even right now, it's like if I'm going to do Fran, I might not can get my best time ever, but I'm going to get sub 3, even if I blow a patella across the room. Like I'm going to die, trying to win. So it's just that's my mindset. It's like I don't know anything but 110%, and so I'm like I'm gonna be the best. It's like I understand networking. I understand what an industry like this, how to be successful, and I think I can do it. And for me, I was somewhat an extraordinary, like normal person in a very abnormal world. In that,
Yeah, you seem very normal for someone who is in LA. I can't believe you were in LA and none of that
yeah, but
shit
it's like,
got on you.
yeah, just for me, it's like, man, I love people. So it's like what that looked like was I remembered, I remember the girls' names. I remember the directors' names. I showed up on time. I always had my paperwork in order. So like your work permit in that industry is, you have to have a 27-day or newer full panel STD and HIV and AIDS test. And like, so making sure I had all my stuff in order and making sure it's like, I would never let it get, below like 14 days or something like that. And it's just like I was just a somewhat responsible person in a world where like people would not show up, they'd be late, they wouldn't do what they wanted to do. If there were lines associated with, they never knew their lines. But it's like I would just always show up like ready for work. And because I was dependable and responsible and like good with people, that I had relationships with people, and just equity with people took me a long way. So I found a lot of success, and and then like we were living in a times where they were parodying everything, and I was a pretty decent actor, so it's like I played Joey and Friends, I played Han Solo in Star Wars, and it's like I do all this stuff. So that's how I started to get a lot of notoriety, and I was consistent. So I found myself like making a lot of money, and I've been nominated Performer of the Year 4 years in a row. And in 2012, I won it. And there was something about, man,
Congratulations.
yeah, yeah. It was like, I was like, but there was something about that. That's like, I really believed that, kind of the same way. It's like, man, if I ever became famous or ever became rich, like that would fix all my problems. Right. But those things there's no metric attached to them, where it's like, you could say, well, once I make, $5 million, then my world's going to change. Well, when you hit that dollar amount and it doesn't make you feel like you thought you would, then what? So you either, wallow in the pain of that, or you just up the bar. And that's what I continue to do financially. But then with that award, I was like, man, because that award is my peers and all the studios voting, me to be the guy. And so in 2012, when I won, I thought that award was going to feel as if I would hear my dad say, son, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it didn't make me feel like I thought it would, I started spiraling out of control.
Did you know right away that night when you went back to your hotel room that holy
Oh, yeah.
shit, this is empty?
Yeah. I mean, because I was I was already like clinging on for dear life, because like it's so weird in that like you're living in a world where it's like I'm dating a girl and you're friends with everyone that's in that industry. So I'm dating a girl and we're out to dinner with another couple, and I had sex with his girlfriend on Monday, and he had sex with my girlfriend that day. But we're sitting there suppressing reality, saying we're in a monogamous relationship. We're out to date at dinner, acting as if we don't care that we've slept with our significant others, and it's just work. So that the suppression of reality is going to equate to chaos in your mind and eventually in your life. And
that's why liberals are so fucked up. I
yeah,
got it.
well, I mean,
They're
and then
suppressing reality.
and just
It's
like
just the truth. It's just the truth.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, amen.
Wow.
And
Wow.
but it's just like in the suppression of what reality actually is, in the defense of, or the justification of, I want the way that I'm living my life to be different. I'm going to say my life is different than what it actually is, so
Right.
that I feel better.
Right.
And that
virtue signaling. Yeah. Wearing. Yeah. It's crazy. Sorry. Just making the connections. It's like
yeah.
you're nailing it. Yeah.
And then so like that equated to like so much brokenness in my life. It's like I'm dating someone, and we're like supposedly like, pursuing this life together, while simultaneously, having sex with, 15 to 20 different people on camera a month. And like having sex with those people became so arbitrary that it was just work. There was no attachment to it. There was no but it was just such a wild time in my life, because I could have sex in front of 10,000 people without blinking and it not be a problem. But if someone that I didn't know came up to me and asked me my name and tried to shake my hand, it was terrifying, because that was real. And I was
wow.
And even to that extent, it's like when you joined that industry, like that agent was like, man, I'm going to make you super famous. They're going to be parodying all these movies. You're going to be, you're going to be a lead in a bunch of them. You're going to make all this money. You're going to be the guy. So what name do you want to go by? Because you're not going to go by your real name. You're going to go by a pseudonym. And just think about this. It's like not every, but a lot of like internet, like antagonists, what do they have in common? Well, they have a meme for a photo and an obscure username, because you think if I remove myself from what I do by calling myself something different, then there's no consequences or repercussions for my actions. I'm not going to be held accountable for what I did. And maybe in some way I can believe that it's not me. So when you remove yourself from your name, you're actually minimizing your humanity, and you're saying, this is not actually me doing this, so I'm going to be more likely to do that. Like the very first question he asked me, like, someone, just imagine you go into an interview. It's like, okay, so number one, what's your name? Okay, will you tell me about your family dynamic? It's like,
shit.
Like, that's weird. Like the first question, how did you grow up? I grew up pretty much me and my mom. Got you. It was a value proposition. Like, tell me something, give me some ammunition so that I can use it against you to manipulate you to do what I want you to do. Like, what do I need to say? Where can I fill in the gaps of your brokenness? Because time after time, it's like there was no person I ever met in the industry that grew up with a healthy family dynamic and they had their life together. They just happened to pursue pornography. Like 0% of the time that's happened. There's always some level of brokenness or a missing element of the life that they needed to formulate a healthy understanding of themselves and the world, or there was significant abuse or something in their life that
like you're not inviting your mom to the AVN Awards, your mom and dad.
No. Well, maybe in this world we live in today, maybe, but yeah, I mean, definitely not. So, I mean, that reality. So like that being reality, it's like, man, I'm spiraling out of control because this award did not make me feel the way that I thought it would. And I start spiraling. And then I start thinking like, man, what am I going to do? I can't do anything else with my life. What's the point? I can't change. I can't act. I can't do this. Like what? And then all the time, like directors are saying, just they say it in a joking manner, but they're trying to chip away at your humanity. It's like, if I were to say, yeah, I'm thinking about getting out. It's like, what else are you going to do?
Oh, they say that?
Oh, yeah. And especially the girls are like, what are you going to put on your resume? Who's going to date you? You're gonna get married? Who are
Hey,
you
that's
kidding?
asshole shit. That's asshole shit.
Well,
Jesus.
it's because a person, it's like if you like chip away at their humanity, like that person is easily manipulated. That's why like all the girls that show up on set, like they're showing up to set, their director is sent them to set. It's like, okay, make sure you have your valid test. This is where you're going. This is what time you show up. They don't really know what they're going to do. They show up, they get there an hour early before the crew and the guy gets there, and the director is saying, hey, you're actually going to come in the back with me and give me a quick blowjob, and I'll give you an extra $500. And if that girl says no, that guy's going to say, well, I didn't know that you were going to be difficult to work with.
That happens.
Not does it happen, it always happens. It's like people ask me, like, is there an element of force, fraud, and coercion that happens? So that's how you would identify like sex trafficking, human trafficking, force, fraud, coercion. That doesn't happen sometimes. That's the very foundation of the porn industry.
I know we're getting to the journey of your awakening, but I got to ask you this. Two questions. When people watch porn, if let's say you watch porn 5 times a month, and let's say you watch porn 10 times a month, and you've been doing that for 20 years. Have you seen someone get raped and you didn't know it?
100%. I'll just say this.
Holy shit.
I'll just say this.
Shit.
So Pornhub, 3 months ago, had to take down 80% of their content.
I saw that.
But why? Because it was child porn. It was non-consensual. It was real rape. There was like a multitude of things there, but there like the stuff that looks like it's scenario play, more often than not, it's not scenario play. It's something that actually happened. There's a girl that I know. She was a paralegal in New York, and she met this guy. They started dating for a little bit. She goes to Vegas with him. He drugs her, and he films himself having sex with her and invites a few other people. They have sex with her, and he puts that up on Pornhub. She never knew that. It was up there 3 years. It had around like 4 million views, and he had made about 50 grand off of viewing it. And it's like, and this happens all the time. And it's like, think about this. If you go to someone's like website, and when you open the homepage is gonna, if you go to my website, you're gonna see, this is here's my book. This is how to book me to speak. Here are resources, because on the homepage you're gonna see what I want you to see. So if you go to Pornhub and several other websites, what you're going to see without looking for it, what they're showing you, here's non-consensual content. Here's like peeping Tom stuff. Here's like the girl is sleeping, and it's like these are things that it's like I'm gonna show you something deeper and darker than what you're looking for, because I want to create an appetite for something deeper and darker in you, and that's their way to segue people to buying pornography and just going deeper and darker.
So porn is just is prostitution. The where they cross is like.
Yeah, I mean,
they're pretty much indistinguishable. Just some of them has some paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, there's
a loophole for porn.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is there's a camera and there's distribution involved. So it's like the prostitution is like maybe the girl's getting paid and a pimp's getting paid, but in porn, it's like all the stuff that I did, it's like, again, I'm just signing these contracts. I don't read them. Well, on that contract, it's like, well, we are reserving the rights because you're an independent contractor and you're getting paid a day rate, and you get a day rate. So what you're doing is you're signing away all rights to video, audio, and any imagery. And there's another signature where they're saying for an unlimited amount of time and an unlimited in unlimited ways, they can partition that content and sell it to as many third parties as they want. So what happens is you shoot this porn, and then all of a sudden the pictures and some of the videos, the snippets, they end up on dating sites, they end up on sex toys, they end up on billboards, they end up, they sell a softer version of it that's cut in a different way to hotels in different places. And all of a sudden the thing that you got paid for one time is partitioned and cut up, 10 different ways, and there's no expiration date on it.
And so if you watch porn and someone's making ad revenue through it, you're facilitating really bad shit. And I don't mean like the same way, like if you buy a Toyota and if you drive your car and cars that run over kids, 200 times a year. I'm saying like you really know, if you watch porn, like you're basically complicit in
Yeah,
with your dollars as much as spending, because in the vast majority of porn, there's bad shit happening to people. And I don't mean morally bad. I mean like people like legally bad.
Yeah, but I'll just say this.
Yeah.
Then I'll hop back into my story.
Yeah.
But so out of every like big name girl that died of either overdose or suicide, every single one.
Yep.
What the porn industry would do is to honor their death. They would make a compilation film and put out like, here's a best of this person. Geez. So that what they would do is they would monetize.
That's macabre. Yeah.
Yeah, they would monetize the very thing that led to their demise. Like my friend Cagney, just this past year, she Cagney Lynn Carter was her porn name, and she left the porn industry. She grew up dancing, like she at a dance studio, loved the art of dance, and she's like, I'm not going to like fool myself to think that I could teach dance. But I want to open a dance studio, hire the best instructors, and create a space in the hometown that I grew up in, Ohio. And I want to create this place for little girls to, have access to what I loved as a kid. And she tried to do that. And then she got hammered because once someone found out who the primary investor and the owner of the place was, they were posting all this porn on their websites and calling all the parents and just like causing this like huge ruckus. And then one day she posts a picture of herself smiling on a beach, and she says, I can finally smile. She posts that picture on a beach. She goes to her hotel room and puts her gun in her mouth. And the next day, the porn industry says, well, here's a compilation film. Here's a best of. And that's been happening over and over again.
Like when a musician dies, their stuff skyrockets to the top of the charts. You're saying when someone in the porn industry dies, they quickly put the ensemble together so they can put a shitload of ads on it and make a ton of money under the guise of celebrating them. But this movie is actually what got them killed. There's some twisted 100%. Irony to it.
And I would say what's the significant difference is like if that happened, to a celebrity or an artist of any kind, an actor or, any kind of musician, well, those royalties are probably tied to some kind of entity that's tied to a family member or someone. And somehow, some way they're going to benefit from that. But in porn, royalties and residuals don't exist.
No one, not even the best, not even when you were at the top of your game, you didn't get them?
Nobody.
Because they could just replace you with someone else.
Well, I mean, that's just that was just the way in which the game was operated. So, I mean, as I left and as time went on, like people, understood, man, I need an LLC. Maybe I should start my own production company. Maybe I can start doing my own stuff. I'll direct my own. But it's like that just didn't happen when I was in the industry.
Right.
So for the most part, like you were just part of this, like, this big machine. And you did, like, if you worked, you got paid. If you didn't, you didn't. There was no residuals. There was no royalties of any kind. So I say that to say, like, when that happens, when people would say, like, what's the difference? Well, the only people benefiting from that is big porn, not that person, not that person's family. They're not getting a cent of that. And that just shows you their character in general. But
are there any people that aren't perverts in the industry? Are there any, like, did you ever meet anyone who's like you are?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, there's people who are still in
Pray.
phase. What's that?
You ever meet anyone like before you guys got down on the set, you got together and prayed? You know, like before a football team, some of the guys will come together and pray. No, did you ever see anything like that? Any?
Well, I mean, there was no like, there was little to no interaction between people prior to, for the most part, because it was just like there was just
I'm having trouble fathoming it. Like just
yeah.
an industry with not a single like it's just all damaged people, everyone, top to
Yeah.
bottom.
Well, I mean, that's what it's built on,
Yeah.
and like to the moment, to the people that would like realize early on, it's like, man, um,
Oh, he's gone.
he's gone. It's just me and you now.
Yeah, I guess. I was gonna bring up this earlier. I've noticed with so North Korea obviously is a very like closed off country. Like they don't have the internet, everything's controlled, everything over there. But when Kim Jong-un or whoever it is released all of his soldiers and they started sending them out to Ukraine, start fighting with the Russians. A lot of them have never had access to a phone ever.
Yeah.
And so like they now all of a sudden they have unfettered access to everything, and they're just becoming like degenerates. They're not going like they're just staying in their bunkers or whatever, and they're not fighting anybody. Like they're just it's insane to think that somebody can go that long and then all of a sudden like just a switch that flips and they're like, oh, this is all I want to do now is just fucking stare at porn.
Yeah, I mean, but you see, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with like the Anxious Generation that Jonathan Haidt wrote, but it's just like it's talking about this wave of post COVID, teenagers where they grew up in like a just like a way of thinking and a way of living, and that everything is so digitized that the content that I assume consume all the time. It's like I'm on a screen 8 to 10 hours a day, all the time, and just the detriment that it has on your life. But what died? Did something die?
The devil doesn't want you to talk.
Yeah.
My internet went down. It probably happens like 10 times a year. And I'm so embarrassed. So I'm on cellular, but go on with your story. This will stop me from interrupting you. This is God telling me, hey, shut the fuck up. I'll put you on a cell line so you can't interrupt him.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, but so for me, it's like I make the money, I win the award, and it doesn't do what I thought it would do. And then I started making a plan to end my life. And I thought like, okay, so at this point I had been doing CrossFit for a little bit. So that had become a huge part of my life. And that was somewhere where I could be somewhat normal, because that's the beauty of CrossFit. It's like we're just all like, sucking wind and dying and hurting together, doing the same workout. And even if it's slightly scaled or whatever, we're still just like dying together. And that reminded me of practice in high school and college. So I just loved it. And no one like people cared about like who you are and what you did. But like when it was go time, like how much money you have in the bank and who you are really didn't matter. It was like, are you doing the appropriate reps? Like, are you getting depth on your squats? Like, are you doing the work? Are you working hard? So I just love that. And so like, as I'm starting to do this, it's like, I'm like having these like glimmers of like, man, what could life be like? And then, I was doing something stupid, like surprise, like a new CrossFitter, like doing something stupid, but I was doing something like weighted pistols, like on something, and I hurt my knee. But anyway, I ended up hurting my knee. And then I had these like pain pills. And then soon after that, I won this award. And I was like looking up like, man, if I take enough of these, maybe that would do the trick. And that and alcohol and a bunch of other things. But like, I try to end my life a multitude of different ways. And I just get to this place where like, I'm just done. I'm just done. And, it's like, the most like horrific things that I could possibly imagine, I had said yes to, and had happened to me, had been done to me, and been, on camera, and I'm just done. And I just get to a place where I'm like, man, I actually need, I depend on the way other people like view me and think about me, to the extent where I need the approval of another person for me to end my life. So I go into a bank, and historically I would go to a Dropbox or an ATM, anything other than to hand the check to a person, because another way the studios would chip away at your humanity is on the memo of the check. They would write either the movie title or something even more grotesque. It's like the most like graphic, like, let's make it clear that this check is for doing porn. And they would do that on purpose, like being antagonistic. So it was like I didn't want to hand,
like Super Gangbang or something like that. Super Gangbang 300.
Yes.
100%. That's what my friends put on Venmo when they send me Venmos. They just send stuff like that, or like they put like ball bearings and like C4 or something, like then they make it look like somebody's paying me for explosives. And
good friends.
Now I'm like,
yeah. So it's like, but that's just kind of like where I was like, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. But then on this day, that's exactly what I wanted. So I wanted to go into the bank, and I wanted to hand the check to the teller, and I wanted her to, say something under her breath, or shake her head, or maybe, just maybe, look me in the eye and tell me how disgusting I was. And she said nothing. And when I didn't get what I wanted, I like started to freak out. I'm like, tears streaming down my face. I'm just like so frustrated. And she just calls out to me, says, Joshua, are you okay? Like, do I need to get you some help? And like at that point in my life, I had stopped answering my mom's calls. Anyone that called me Joshua, I didn't have a relationship anymore, because all those people, like anyone that actually cared about me, was saying, dude, even my fraternity bros, like, dude, like maybe that was cool at first, but it's been, 6+ years. What are you doing?
And now they're having kids and families, and
it's like, what are you doing? And especially with like, there was an HIV outbreak where the industry shut down, and a few people died, and I actually had unprotected sex with this person who had HIV and died. And it's like, by the grace of God, like I'm alive. I didn't contract anything, but it's like that was the reality of my life. And for someone that cared about me, it's like, dude, you got to get out of there. Like, what? Like, do something different with your life. And I honestly believe I couldn't. So I stopped answering those calls. And so I say that to say that I just welcomed the affirmation of people that applauded me being the industry, and anyone that was against it, I just would push them away, because I didn't think I could leave. I didn't think it'd change. And so that set up for me going about 18 months, almost 2 years, without hearing my real name. So this bank teller just says my name, and that just kind of, as simple as it is, me hearing my real name, it's just like, it woke me up out of this like plausible reality. And I'm like, man, I got to call my mom. And I like run out of there, and I call my mom, and she cusses me out, because she thought, I could have very well been dead. And she, over 18 months. And it's like, she was irate, but like glad that I'm okay, but so mad that I have seen her texts and calls and just refused to even just text her back and say that I was okay. And
that's brutal.
Which
that's
is
brutal.
warranted.
Can you imagine your boys
Terrible.
doing that to you? Holy shit.
No. And then after she gets everything off her chest, she says, hey, I want you to know that you will always be my son. I will always love you. But I need you to know that you're better than this. And I think that you need to come home. And home was the Carolinas. And I didn't know what to do but to run, because I was like, either stay and die or leave and run. So I ran. And the only thing that made sense, or the only thing that I had in my back pocket was level 1 coaching certification. So I was like, I guess I can coach CrossFit. Like there's literally nothing else I can do. And so I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I applied to a bunch of gyms. And, so this is like 2013. So like CrossFit is, it's blowing up, and it's at the point where then, especially, it's like, I could put, that CrossFit logo on, a barn, and get 100 members. So it was in a place where it was beginning to become, it wasn't quite what it was in California, but in North Carolina, like there were lots of affiliates, and there were enough affiliates that were booming enough where they did have like head coaches and full-time positions somewhat. So I found one of those, and there was just something about, it's like, I did my L1 in Santa Cruz with, Katie Hogan and Chris Spieler. And it's like,
Wow.
and it's just like, there was just like people that I knew and where I came from. It made it look as if I was more like accredited and equipped than I actually was. But they hired me, and then I just started this journey where I'm coaching there, and I just love it. I just love it. And for me, I was a pretty good athlete, but I was a great coach because I cared about people. I understand body mechanics. I loved programming. That was just kind of like part of how I thought and what I cared about, and had a lot of success in that. And then stepped into running another affiliate. And this affiliate, it was more so a strength and conditioning facility that utilized CrossFit as a training methodology. So they were like outsourcing like strength and conditioning to private universities that had a strength coach, but they didn't have an individualized strength coach for each team. We were working with like the county, like SWAT team, doing some strength conditioning with them. And then that provided a lot of opportunities for personal training. So that allowed me to make, pretty decent money, where I had multiple people that I was training 3-4 times a month, and life was great. And that went on.
Were you going to church at this time?
No, not even considered it.
Let me just make one quick observation. Isn't it interesting that you needed validation to live?
Yeah.
And then from the teller, you were looking for validation for death, and you couldn't get it. That you failed at fucking both. Bitch, just say fucking I'm horrible.
Yeah.
Someone say that either you love me or I should die. You couldn't get it. Like it's pretty wild that you look for it in both places. Anyway, sorry, go on.
But I would say it's like, I mean, so many people like want to hear that, especially men. Like men, like most men, like their love language is physical touch, words of affirmation, and that's why it's so important. Like even if we don't have a father in our life, we need to be fathered in some way, where we need, a mentor or someone to step into the gap. It's like, hey, this is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to be a friend. This is what it means to have integrity. This is how you do stuff that, you're going to need to do. This is how you defend yourself. I think, every man needs to understand those things. I think every man needs to be, to some extent, capable of violence. It's like you need to understand and be capable of these things, and you need someone to teach you those things, because we can't figure out everything on our own. And but yeah, so it's like I get to this place where it's like I'm trying to build another kingdom for myself, and the way I say it is like I try to put enough good dirt on my bad dirt so I didn't look dirty. And what I mean by that is like, even while people knew I used to do porn, but now I'm this respected, CrossFit coach, and I'm like decent at, it's like
they didn't threaten to fire you or anything. It's amazing how welcoming CrossFit is. No one was judging you there. I mean, not that no one was judging you there, but the owners weren't like, hey, we can't have you here.
I don't know if you know her, but Christmas Abbott owned.
Yep.
So she owned that affiliate. So
Okay,
I just think there was a.
I knew her well, and I don't know if this is true, but I had also heard that she had started her own OnlyFans business, which is kind of some irony there. I don't know if that's true, but I heard she had started her own kind of management company where she was managing people to do OnlyFans, which is there's some interesting irony there. But yeah, I know who she is very well. I used to hang out with her quite a bit.
Yes, I'm not aware if she's doing that, but I think just then it's just like, the broken elements in her story it get like she had significant empathy for me.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and and I was pretty good at what I did. So it was like this element of, there's this brokenness in me that she can relate to, and I was good at my craft. And then she needed a new head coach, and it just worked. And so it's like I step into that. I'm doing that for a while, and then I just get to this place where it's like life is good. But again, I'm trying to stack enough good dirt on my bad dirt so I don't look dirty. And what I mean is I'm trying to do enough good, even while knowing there's some bad elements of me. And I don't believe that I can truly change at my core, but maybe I can manipulate people's perception of me.
Yeah.
So that they say I'm okay, even if I feel like I'm not okay. So that way I look good, even if I don't feel good. And maybe you can make me feel good for a moment. If I, am doing, if I'm making enough money and I can do pistols and muscle ups, and, and I coach the 5 a.m. class, and I teach foundations, it's like,
and there's a part of you that's like, okay, I lived this whole bad life, or maybe bad's not the right word, but questionable life. And then now you're basically like, okay, what things am I going to say to God when I get to the pearly gates? He's going to be like, hey, you had sex with this girl out of wedlock. And you're going to be like, yeah, but I taught this 69-year-old woman how to squat below parallel. And you're like, you're trying to like even the scale, right? Okay.
100%. And
not
and
only,
then,
go ahead.
Yeah. And then in walks this gorgeous girl, and she's like all decked out, and like every day she had like Iowa Hawkeye stuff on. So it was obviously she was a cheerleader. She was a cheerleader at Iowa. She did gymnastics her whole life. So like muscle ups, pistols, like handstand walking, anything on the bar. She's just like, she's kicking everybody's butts. I'm like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
And there she is. So
you're impressed, and you're loving it.
Yeah. And so I asked her, I'm like, can we go to dinner? Can we go to lunch? Can we go to breakfast? Can we get coffee? Can we Netflix and chill? The answer is no. The answer is no across the board. It's like no to everything. And then one day she's just like, hey, maybe she's just like tired of me asking. And she was like, hey, I go for a long run before I go to church on Sundays. Do you want to meet me for that run? And I'm just like, not exactly what I was looking for, but I'll take whatever I can get. And then I show up.
Why do you think she said that? Why do you think she finally said that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, there was some, attraction there maybe. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe she was just tired of me asking.
Right.
She want to see how down you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
A long run, really?
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, not a 400 meter. Like, we're talking about a 5K. I'm like,
how long was this after the first time you asked her out?
Probably a few months.
Okay.
And so we I meet her, and then it's like, thinking back in retrospect, I'm like, well, she normally, does, like she does some like extra work, like in the corner, like by herself, and then she's out. Like, she doesn't hang out. She doesn't like, because the coaches and a few people, it's like, you form this community. It's like we go to the bar, we parties, like hang out. It's like she's not really like about that life. It's like, so I wonder if she knows like my backstory. I'm like, I bet she doesn't. She certainly doesn't. There's no way that she would have invited me if she knew. So it's just like, I'm convincing myself. I'm like, man, I need to troubleshoot this before it blows up in my face. Like, maybe I'll get fired. It's like, it's like I'm hitting on this like, the best athlete in the gym. It's like, they're trying to get back to regionals, and she's the only hope, and I like scared her off from the gym. It's like, I'm gonna get, kicked out of the gym. So I'm just like, man, before the run really started, I was like, hey, there's something I want to tell you. There's this nuke I'm gonna drop on you. And it's just like I go into this like 5-minute monologue, like, hey, this is how much I suck. This is how terrible I am. And it was just this I grew up without a dad. I'm this kid that his daddy didn't want, and that created a lot of pain in my life. I did a bunch of bad stuff trying to overcome that. And I've even done all this porn. It's all over the internet for the world to see, and the stuff that creates the most shame in my life.
Was this the first time you had told a story like in 2 years?
This is the first time I'd ever been like forthcoming. It's like people.
Since you left LA.
Well, just like, I mean, naturally people would like, out of curiosity would Google me and find out. And then once like people knew, and it was kind of like whispered about, but I'd been there for almost 2 years. So it's almost like it had lost like, yeah, this is something he did. And every once in a while, like a new member would find out, and it would be like,
But you would never just said it to anyone.
never. No, it was like,
So this is
would,
also the first time you've actually shared it.
yeah. So I would hide until I got found out. And then I would minimize it, as much as possible. I was not forthcoming with this information whatsoever. I literally I covered up my tattoos, shaved my head, deleted all my social media. I ran as far from and tried to pretend like it never happened is what I was doing. And then I just but I spill the beans. I tell her everything. And she's just like, holy crap, rightfully so. I just dropped this bomb on her. And we just kind of walk in silence. And, I'm just waiting on her to be like, why don't you just, get out of here or something. Or maybe even ninja shot me in the throat or something, like nothing good. And she stops and she's like super serious. And she says, hey, I don't want to minimize anything you told me. I don't want to even say that I can relate to your relationship with your dad. I can't. I have a great relationship with my dad. And I don't want to say that the decisions you made didn't have real consequences. But I do want to say this. You're not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. And your life won't be defined by the greatest thing you ever do. Because at the end of the day, you are not the author of you. God is. Do you know him? And I didn't, but I was conditioned to say yes. In that I would, I call it a first date mask. I didn't think much of myself, so I just wanted to pretend to be whoever I thought you wanted me to be so that you liked me and affirmed me. And I just wanted to say yes, but I just couldn't say anything. I was just so perplexed by what she had said. And I just kind of shook my head like an idiot. And she's like, well, I'm not perfect by any means, but I've been following Jesus since I was in the 7th grade. And he's the foundation from which I live my life. So what kind of food do you like? What's your family like? And I was like, what? Didn't you just hear what I said? I thought I was crazy. You're crazy. This is insane. But what had happened is I was just hit with a freight train of, man, everything that I believed to be most true, you just challenged it. Because I certainly believed that my identity was based upon my dad not wanting me and me living out of that deficit and the mistakes that I made in my life, the people that I hurt, and the porn that was on the internet. That was what encompassed my identity to my bones. This is not what happened to me and what I did. This is who I am. And she the way that she answered that, I was like, man, could she be right? Could it be true that there is this, because I had heard of and was interested by this cosmological argument that, time, space, and matter all came into existence at the same time. And there had to be an intelligent, timeless, spaceless being that was catalytic and all those things coming into fruition at the same time. That was scientifically proven to be true. So there had to be a first cause to the causation of all those things. Could that be God? And could he want a relationship with me? And is there forgiveness and meaning that's available to me? This is interesting. I don't know the answer to those things at that point. And but I was curious of gosh, could this be true? And, and then we go, we finished this long walk where she's asking me about, what's my SMART goals and stuff. She's an elementary school teacher. And I'm like, I don't even know what an acronym is, for the most part, it's what are you talking about? We're just so perplexed and interested in her. And she was just she disarmed me and she put this curiosity in me. And then she invited me to church. And I wasn't really super interested in going to church, but I was obviously very interested in her. And I go into this church and I had these preconceived notions about what church would be like. And, I went to church a few times as a kid, and I thought, man, if you got tattoos on your arm or wrinkles in your shirt, you're going to hell. So I'm like, certainly I was on my way there. And I had no business being in this church, but I go to this church, and this guy in jeans with tattoos and a white t-shirt gets up and he starts sharing this message out of 2 Samuel chapter 9. And this is King David, David and Goliath. He's telling the story of King David, and he's sharing about how King David had just rebuilt the temple, but he's remembering how he made this promise to his friend Jonathan. Jonathan was a son of Saul. So Saul was a previous king. He sinned against God. That kingdom was stripped away from him. David was chosen, anointed to be king. And now there was this tension where David was chosen to be king, but Saul was still king. And there was this tension there. And Saul had a son, Jonathan. And while Saul was plotting to kill David, Jonathan had his back. He's like, hey, 3:00 tomorrow, my dad's going to throw a spear at you. Be ready. And they created this friendship. And David says to Jonathan, hey, I'm going to show you kindness, not only to you, but your family forever. You've been an incredible friend to me. And now many years later, David's thinking, man, how can I show this loving kindness that I've experienced from God to God's people? Man, I'm remembering my friend Jonathan. I know that he and his grandfather are both dead, but I wonder if there's anyone left in his family. And then there was like this guy, Ziba. Ziba served under Saul, but now he's serving under David because David's king. And he says, hey, Ziba, come here. Do you know, is there anyone left out of this family of Saul? And he's like, yes, there's his son, Mephibosheth. But he's in this place called Lodabar. He's in this like desert wasteland. He's hiding. Why is he hiding? Well, historically, if there was a previous kingdom and there was any kind of lineage remaining, well, they were seen as a threat because, there would be these upheavals of a previous kingdom trying to overtake this new established kingdom. So because they were a threat, historically, they would be identified and eradicated. This person was deserving of death. So because of that, he was in this place hiding. Ziba sends a bunch of guards. They find Mephibosheth. They bring Mephibosheth before David. And David's, Mephibosheth thinks David's going to kill him. David's excited. He's like, Mephibosheth, so good to see you. And it's like, man, why are you excited? You're going to behead me, right? And David's like, no, I'm going to restore your grandfather's land, which is part of Canaan, which is part of their kingdom, their promised land. I'm going to invite you to be part of this kingdom. And every day when I sit at the king's table, I want you to sit beside me. That's what I'm inviting you into. And if I walked into my boss's, office and he gave me a raise when I thought I was going to get fired, I would be pretty stoked. I would be excited. And this is like a really beautiful picture of grace, of this unmerited favor that, he didn't deserve, but he got something, he got something so much better that he thought he was going to get.
Because of David's original promise to the family.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Going back, why did Saul turn against his dad?
Why did Saul turn against his dad?
You said Saul told David, hey, I'll let you know my dad's going to kill you. I have your back.
Oh, so Jonathan. So
Jonathan. So why did Jonathan turn? Was the dad Saul?
Yeah. So the dad was Saul, and
why did Jonathan turn on his dad? Why did?
So Jonathan didn't necessarily turn on his dad. Like he wasn't against his dad, but his dad was trying to kill David because David had been chosen and anointed to be king, while Saul had. So he had did something that God had explicitly commanded him not to do, and he's like, if you do that, I'm going to strip your kingship away from you. And he did it anyway. He was operating in what he thought was best in spite of what God had said. And so now they're in this tension. And then, so it's just like, Jonathan and David were buddies, and Saul was like literally trying to kill David. And Jonathan was just saying, hey, I'm not going to help you plot against my dad, but I'm going to let you know my dad's plotting against you. And so he wasn't like against his dad per se.
Okay.
He was for his friend. So that's why they had this friendship.
Okay. Sorry to get hung up on that. I don't like anyone.
No worries.
I don't like anyone turning against their dad. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, go on. I'm sorry. Okay. So he brings Mephibosheth to David. Okay.
Yeah. Mephibosheth. Yeah. Mephibosheth. So that name's probably available. There's probably good SEO on that name.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so Mephibosheth is in front of him, and then he says, "Hey, I'm going to give you, land, kingdom, proximity in the kingdom." And Mephibosheth doesn't say like, "Wow, thank you." He says, "Yeah." So if you go down to verse 8, so verse 8 is the way that he responds. So when he gets to verse 8, Mephibosheth bowed down and said, "What is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me?"
Mm.
AKA he said, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you remember who my grandfather was?" And he was so sure of his destiny and his identity, even when grace was offered to him, he couldn't wrap his head around it. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Because like, don't you know what I've done? Don't you know how many people I've hurt? Like there's literally like porn of me on the internet. Like, how could I ever be forgiven? And I'm hearing about this God man that, that was sent into this world that, Romans 3:23 talks about that we've all sinned. So if God is perfect in love, he's got to be perfect in justice. So Romans 3:23 says we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So sin is just missing the mark. So have I lied? Have I lusted? Have I done something that disqualifies me from being perfect in every way? Yes. That's true of all of us. And then it goes on. So Romans 6:23 says the wages of that sin is death. So meaning that because we have all sinned, then we are all equating to that death, that punishment of death meaning separation from God. So it's like if we're all guilty and we're all facing the same judgment, then what are we to do? Because we're all in the same place. So God provides a solution in that he sends his son into this world, born of a virgin. He lives a perfect life. He never sins. He faces all the temptations that we face, but because he has the capacity of God, he has the resilience not to sin. And because he never sins, he goes to the cross and he dies a death as a perfect man. The Bible says he who was without sin became sin, so that we can become the righteousness of God. So a perfect man goes to the cross and he dies. And the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is by a mile the most historically documented account in the history of time. Any legitimate historian will say, if we can be sure of anything that's happened in the world, is that Jesus Christ died of crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. Like that, it happened 100%. And then 3 days later, the Bible tells us that he rose. There was 500 witnesses that saw him rose. And I would say that the thing that provided the most evidence for me as I was digging into this, man, Jesus' own brother. Like, how many people have a brother that's like, man, when their brother goes on to become something, like when my brother became a professor of genetics at Clemson, I was shocked. I'm like, this guy, he used to, eat boogers with his toes, like he's like super weird, super weird. Like how can this guy, be formulating thought to that extent and teaching people about something so complex? But so James, the brother of Jesus, denied his divinity until he saw him resurrected. And then, the apostles and many others were not only willing to testify that Jesus was God and he went to the cross and he died and they saw him resurrected, they were willing to preach that message upon persecution and willingly die and say, hey, if you don't deny what you're saying and pledge your allegiance to Caesar, then you will die. And they did willingly, because they believed what they saw, not just what they didn't believe conceptually, an idea that sounded good. They believed something with so much significance to their own life that they were willing to go to the end of their life and die because of their belief in this thing. So for me, as I look at this and I'm hearing all this, and it's all this is going on, and then he reads this pastor, he reads this passage from Hebrews 12:2, and it's talking about Jesus. He with joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning our shame, and he's now seated at the right hand of God. But there was just something that went off in my head, like knowing the totality of the story that he was telling, that this perfect man who was fully God and fully man, all powerful and all knowing, he goes to the cross. So not only does he know what's going on, he knows the outcome. So he's, as he's going to the cross, like joy set before him. Why does he have joy? I was almost like angry, why would this like God man, this all powerful and perfect, and he knows everything and he's capable of all things and he exists outside of time. So he knows what's going to happen when he does it. Why does he have joy? And then in that moment, it's like I had this like almost like out of body experience. It's like, have you heard Sam Dancer's story?
No, I have not.
Oh, dude, you should connect with Sam and hear his like come to Jesus moment. It's wild. There's like I don't know, like a rainbow unicorn like shooting a laser out of the sky like into his left eye or something. Like it's wild. But
That sounds like a Sam Dancer story.
Yeah, but it's like I had this moment where I just like I had this weight on me but it was like soothing, and I closed my eyes and then I just began to see stories play out, and I see rooms that I was in where there were needles in arms and like they were powder on tables, and I had partook in those things, but they died and I didn't. And there was a balcony that my friend Joe, we were hammered. We've been drinking for 2 days straight, and he for some reason he just decides to just fall off this balcony and he dies. And then I'm just thinking, and then
You were there for that? You were there for that?
No. I'm seeing these things, but Joe, but that was one of my roommates. That did happen in Mexico. He did fall off this balcony. But I'm seeing these pictures of things. But I'm seeing like people die, places that I was in where people died, and then I'm thinking about like blood, and it's like it's almost it's hard to describe, but it's like literally I saw like HIV like coming into my blood, and then I saw a hand stop it. And in my head, I just began to think.
This is while you're sitting at the church and during the sermon.
Yeah, and I'm on my knees, on my face, like sobbing my eyes out. And then I just hear, like in my head, not out loud, but I hear this fatherly, nurturing, loving voice saying, "Son, I love you." And I begin to kind of put everything together, and that I had longed for a father. I had longed to hear the words from a father. I had longed to hear, "Son, I'm proud of you. Son, I love you." And I had a father in heaven that loved me so much that he interceded on my behalf in spite of me. Again, Romans 5:8 says, "Yet while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." Meaning that while knowing the worst thing that you've ever done and the worst thing you will ever do, because he exists outside of time, knowing that, he willingly goes to the cross. He is beaten. He is spat on. There's a crown of thorns, slammed into his head. His back is beaten to the extent where his organs are visible. He's just beaten to oblivion, and he has joy. And he does that in spite of me. Why? Because he loves me. And that washed over me. And something happened that's beyond my explanation. And I stood up and I felt light. The shame that I've been carrying was gone to an extent. But what was truly gone was that I no longer needed to hear, "Son, I'm proud of you," because I believe I just did. And that moment, shaped the rest of my life. So that was in the spring of 2014. And that girl that went on that walk with, her name's Hope. And we are in our 10th year of marriage, and we've got 4 kids. So 7, 5, 4, and 18 months, 20 months. And God flipped my life right side up. So I continued, let's go. There's our squad. And
How old are the boys?
Yeah, so Cannon is in the middle. He's 7. Lincoln is right there. He's 5. Judah is making that weird little face because he's a 4-year-old, and then Abel is 20 months, and that's my Hope. And she it was funny, like the church is named Hope Community Church, and her name is Hope, and she pointed me to the hope when I had no hope in Jesus Christ. And that day it changed my life. And in the same way where if I wanted to understand any kind of methodology that was outside of myself, I noted that I needed a coach. It's like I needed and then, back in the day where, everybody, you would have, everybody was going to Bergner for, a weightlifting, you wanted a weightlifting coach, and then you were going to Chris Henshaw for endurance, and, to Carl for like gymnastics and movement, where everybody wanted a coach for some specialty things, because you wanted to be good at everything and bad at nothing. And so for me, that even playing basketball, communication, I always appreciated constructive criticism because it allowed me to be better at what I wanted to be good at. And for me, it's like, man, I really want to know this Bible, and I believe this God man is real in Jesus Christ. And I want to know more about him. And I think there's something to this Bible. And I knock on the church. I knock on the door of the church. And I'm like, hey, can anybody coach me on how to be a Christian, how to follow Jesus? And this guy, Andrew, he's like, man, I intended to just like, give you a Bible and get you plugged into a small group and tell you to read the book of John. And instead, I felt prompted to just like pour my life out into you. But he didn't know that he was talking to like a certified maniac. So he was like, I'll give you as much time that you want. And I was like, perfect. So I end up like showing up at his office, and we spend like 20 to 25 hours a week together. I'm like giving away clients, like giving away classes. I'm like paying people, to do my classes. And I just wanted to be at that church, but more so like he was teaching me what this Bible said and how to read it. And, just like, how to look at the text and like, observation, what do you see? Interpretation, what does it mean? And then application, how do I apply this to my, my world? And, historically, reading the context, like me understanding like, okay, Ephesians, like, okay, this was written by Paul, and it was written to a group of Christians, and he's writing to a group of Christians that he's poured into. And he's like, hey, this is how the functionality of the church is. And when John, like the book of John, it's like, this is John's like eyewitness account of who Jesus is, what he did, and what it means for you if you place your faith in him. So just understanding some of these things, I just like fell in love with it. And just like in the same way that like I loved basketball, I loved my grandma's like buttermilk biscuits, I loved CrossFit, I fell in love with the Bible. So it made the most sense to me to say, hey, I want to tell people about this thing that's changing my life, and I find it so intriguing. So I just wanted to know more so I can give more. And I studied under this guy for several years, and he just didn't like teach me how to read the Bible. He spent time with me. It's like, hey, this is how you are to be a good friend. This is what it means to be a husband. This is what it means to be, this is how you bring correction to someone who is your superior in leadership. Like, this is how you walk in integrity. This is how you respond to conflict. This is how you apologize. This is how you say that I'm wrong. This is how you tell someone, that they're out of line. So like like the Bible talks about in 1 Thessalonians, it's like, it's one thing to teach one another, the word, but it's another thing to show them how to live. So for me, it's like, yeah, I wanted an explanation, but having a demonstration was the thing that transformed me even more so because, man, I loved, mentorship, leadership. I loved that. So him walking with me and showing me how to walk, it changed my life. And, and then I go to Liberty University, actually like where I'm in proximity of today. I was there yesterday on campus, and I study Christian ministries, biblical theology. And then, I start working in church settings. And then in 2021, I get this random email from Fox, and they're like, would you be interested in going to meet with Tucker Carlson and his wife in Portland, Maine, and being on his show on Fox? And I was like, why not?
How did that pop on his radar? Just from social media, or?
Well, so I deleted my social media and then started again. But then, so my church had did this, like, kind of like a bumper at the beginning of the service, like here's some stories from people who attend here. And they sat me down. They're like, tell us your story. And I tell them the totality of the story. They're like, we can't share that. So they're like, there's this guy that didn't have a dad, and he went to LA and he made some bad choices, but now he serves on the parking team. Look
Right.
at him go. But the videographer, like, he worked really hard, and we developed this relationship. And he captured, not only like my baptism, but then all of a sudden, like, I'm leading other people to Christ, and I'm baptizing a ton of people. And then, it's in when I proposed to my wife, it's like I called the principal, and I was like, hey man, can we put on like a fake pep rally so that there's a guest speaker coming, but it's actually me, and I proposed to my wife in front of all of her like students. And I did that, but like they captured all this stuff. And then so he had like 2 years of content on top of that. So he had like from like 2014 to like 2016, 2017. So he had all this content, but he threw it on his YouTube. So his name's Tyler Vincent. And so he's got on his YouTube, he shared this video, and it's kind of like it's like a big snapshot of my story, but it got like, there it is. There he is.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
That's
our
awesome.
little kids like sitting there. And but he's like, hey, in like during 2020, he's like, hey man, can I just throw this on YouTube? I've just got this sitting here. And I was like, yeah, man, why not? And he throws it on YouTube, and it goes crazy. And it got around like 900,000 views the week that he put it out. And like, that's how I got on their radar. And then, so Tucker brings me out to Portland, Maine. I hang out with them for 2 days. And then he interviews me, and he's like, man, tell me how you went from going, to the top porn star in the US in 2020 to, teaching the Bible. Like, how does this happen? And it just like that moment, it just like, it changed everything. And it's so cool. It's like I look like I'm like 15 in that video. So it's like,
Dude, you look so. Hey, was that scary? Did you know you were going to reveal that much in this video? Like, or when you go on Sean Ryan, do you know you're going to reveal that much? I mean, there's stuff in there. Like, I'm pretty like, I've seen it all. And even watching the Sean Ryan video, I'm like, what? And I'm pretty open. But when I was watching the Sean Ryan video, I'm like, wow, I wonder if he knew that this much was going to come out. And like, because as you're talking, you have an editor, and it's like, oh shit. And like, should I be speaking into, maybe to put it in your parlance? I don't remember where it is in the Bible, but something that really stuck with me in the Bible is and I don't know if this is true, but Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he says, hey, when they capture you, don't prepare your defense, just open your mouth and God will speak through you. Yeah. And I feel like I come to that crossroads in my life every day. It's like I always see the editor, but I'm like, hey, like I usually can put 99% of the time I can push him away. When you're on these shows, are you like, oh shit, the editor really wants to come in and be like, sorry, God, not today?
Oh, sure. But I think it's like my past owned me for so long.
Yeah.
Vulnerability has become my superpower. So it's like the way that I'm not owned by my past, I own it. And
All right.
for me,
Right.
it's like I love because every time I share my story, every time in person, what will happen is someone will come up to me after the fact and say, "Hey, I've never shared this with someone, but I've
Yeah.
never said this out loud."
Awesome.
But. And I think just like vulnerability, like begets vulnerability. And
So
for
you're
me,
helping people set themselves free by you setting yourself free.
yeah, absolutely. And every time I share something, it's like, man, either I can allow like the nitty gritty things, like some pretty gnarly things have happened to me in my life, and either I can like, man, I don't want to share those things, and of course, like there is certain context that I'll share certain things that I won't, but it's like I could be like, man, I never want to tell anyone that, or I never want to share that, or I can say, well, I'm going to trust if either like God's going to shut my mouth or I'm going to say this in good faith, believing that there's someone that needs to hear this. And when they do, they're gonna give themselves permission to say the thing they haven't said, to overcome the thing that they believe they can never overcome. Because I mean, I literally have a note that I wrote when I was going to take my life. Reasons I want to take my life. I'll never be a husband. I will never be a father. I'll never
Wow.
contribute to the world in a way that leads to positive change. And I was certain of that. Yet all those things were untrue. And man, if I can share one thing that undoes something in someone that they've been trapped by for a long time, then praise God. It's like I'm just so honored and privileged to live the life that I've lived, to write that book, to be a husband, to be a father, to be a leader, to be on college campuses, speaking to young adults and just sharing with them, hey, there's so many mistakes that I made because I believed that I needed to be something, to feel something. And hey, there's dignity and value and honor in walking in integrity, and there's answers to the tough questions in life. And if I can provide some of those things for people, or be a mentor or a guide to anyone, then praise God. I'm more than glad to. And yeah, man.
How are you on time?
Me?
Yeah.
I actually, if I got like 6 minutes before I got to
Okay.
run.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this thing that I've told people over the years that there's no reason ever to end a relationship with anyone. All you have to do is show them who you really are, and
Yeah.
most people will just fucking leave. And that if they stay, you found the greatest person ever. And that is what when I hear about your relationship with Hope, that's what you did. You gave her like, hey, try swallowing this, and she was unfazed by it. She didn't take the bait, and she accepted you, and like it just cleared the path for
Yeah, and not only that, man, like there's been moments in my life where I've like when you become a Christian, you don't become perfect. Like that's not true. Like your problems don't go away. It's like I had to like I did like 2 years of counseling. It's like there was like a ton of healing that I needed to experience and lean into. But man, there's been moments in my life where I just like wanted to give up and thought like so poorly of myself. And then I hear her have conversations with people, and girls will ask her, you know, how do you not like have some level of resentment for him, because you're going to have a really hard conversation with your kids because of decisions that he made. How do you not like find yourself trapped in comparison with all the partners that he had? How is that not a reality for you? And she just simply says in her sweet little voice, why would I ever speak to myself the way that Satan speaks to me?
wow.
Why would I
Wow.
ever
Wow.
why would I ever look at him or speak to him like that? That's nonsense to me. So I refuse to do it. So at the end of the day, like what you might find when you do a Google search on him is not the most true thing about him. And her loving me that way allowed me to love myself. And she's incredible. And our relationship transformed my life. And she's an incredible mom, incredible friend, incredible wife. And it's just like, man, her just having these moments with me where like her love language is quality time. Like she grew up in a, I feel like her family like fell out of the Hallmark Channel, and it's like we've had these moments where she's saying like, what I need from you is quality time, like not a quality gift, not a quality experience. The greatest present that you can give me is your presence. And that was so difficult for me because I didn't think a lot of myself. Like I can view myself highly in some ways, but at the end of the day, it's like, what am I worth? Not much, because my mind can so easily go back to that little kid looking out a window, seeing, his dad across the street, knowing that he probably wouldn't even recognize me if he saw me. And it's so easy for me to go back there. But she would just say, hey, the greatest present that you can give me is your presence, because you are a gift to me. And that allows me to be a better dad, because it would be so easy for me to like, man, because I didn't have a dad, I got to buy my kids, all the stuff and do. Like, no, my 7-year-old wants me to sit on the ground and play tic-tac-toe with him and look him in the eye and be undistracted, because the only thing he wants from me is me. I would not be able to do that. I know I'm getting emotional, but I was like, I would not be able to do that unless she loved me that way. And man, I want that for everybody, like everyone to experience, like, man, like truly being loved, truly being seen, truly being known. And at the end of the day, it's like, man, there's stuff that you're capable of that you're not doing that the world desperately needs. So like, don't be stuck in unforgiveness and brokenness and, passivity. It's like there's something that you need to do or to build or create or to start. There's a dream that you feel like maybe it's died, it's been too long and you've gone too far, you've done too much, or you've waited too long. The reality is you haven't missed it. And maybe today's a day that you step over the line, or maybe you draw the line in the sand. It's like, just because, your family history looks some sort of way, that doesn't mean that's the dad or the husband or the wife or the mom or the friend that you have to be. You can draw the line in the sand and say, hey, today's a day that I refuse to allow my past to own me. I'm going to step into whatever it is that I feel called and gifted to do, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be okay with failing and falling forward. And I'm going to surround myself with people that actually have my back and have my best interests.
There's so much I want to ask you, but let me get these two questions out. Maybe you have the time in the next 3 minutes to answer this. You say your life was transformed by the love of Jesus, not following religion. That crazy resonates with me. I have this crazy relationship. And also when I had my awakening, mine was similar to yours, the whole life flashing before my eyes, in the presence of a great ball of light. And unfortunately, I did, I don't know if it's unfortunate, I did go to the local church and they pushed me away. I went to the Buddhist temple, they pushed me away. I couldn't find anything. To be honest, I think I was awakened more than anyone who was there. And so that they couldn't even fathom what I saw, what I experienced, and that experience, basically I went through like a ball of light and then I was dead. Sevon was dead and I was just this clean slate. And then Sevon was just this toolbox, this amazing toolbox of tools to use moving forward in my life. My whole life has kind of been like that ever since. But when you say this, your life is transformed by the love of Jesus, not following religion, like that resonates so strong with me. But all the Christians that I kind of want to bond with, they're following religion.
Yeah. And
I almost feel like they're missing the living. And when I hear people talk about faith, it's nothing like my faith, because my faith is like a living organism. It's like it's not something I have. I'm in it.
Yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, religious people killed Jesus. I mean, just think about that. Like religious people killed Jesus because they were so sure of what they knew.
Yeah.
That when something that conflicted with their belief challenged that, or was like, well, the only thing that made sense is to eliminate what is standing in the way of what logically makes sense to me.
Kind of like Charlie Kirk.
Exactly like that. And I think like that in itself, it's like we're in a specific moment in time where people are more hungry for truth than ever before. People craving authenticity. And it's like, even in the churches that I speak in, it's like, they don't want this, like, tell a joke, make me laugh, like, bring out all these props. Like, tell me the dang truth.
Right.
Like, how do I fix my life? And for me, again, it was a relationship with the person of Jesus Christ, because that's like
Is there a
Christianity.
paradox there, though, then, Joshua?
Well, yeah, because I would say,
that you
'cause,
keep pointing to Scripture, but it's also the love of, because that is the religion, right? Is there a
Well, no,
paradox there that you have to deal with?
well, so because it's like the rule book, it's not a list of rules that I have to follow, like, because, like,
It's
for
a
example,
tool book, and I like the way you
I
described it
don't,
as tools. Your mentors gave you tools, not
yeah,
rules. Oh,
yeah,
that rhymes.
yeah. Look at you. You're ready to preach.
I'm a rapper.
Yeah, but for me, it was, man, because, like, the Word of God, like Jesus affirmed the Bible, so I place my faith in the legitimacy and the historicity of Jesus, and Jesus affirms the Bible. Jesus says that not a dot, not an iota of his word will pass away until it's all fulfilled. He said that he is the embodiment of truth. Like John chapter 1 says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and it was God. So it's saying, like, the word is talking about logos in the Greek. It's by in which all things are made. It's the thing in which all things come through. And then as the text goes on, it's like, nothing was made without me, and everything was made for me. So it's like the Word of God is, it's like, here's who God is. And this is, I love this. Like, in the beginning, so the distinction that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Was God.
So it's like, so in the word is in the Greek, it's logos, but it's referring to Jesus. It's saying that Jesus is God, and all things were made by him, through him, and for him. So the Word of God, it's like our kids. It's like, I love to, like, read these to you real quick. So we our kids, we do these catechisms every night before bed. So who made you? God made me. Why did God make you? To know him, to love him, and to live for his glory. What is God like? God is holy. He is good. He is strong, and he's always with me. What is sin? Sin is when I choose my way instead of God's way. Who can save us from sin? Only Jesus. What does it mean to follow Jesus? To trust him, to love him, and to obey his word. Do I make mistakes? So I say, individually, I say, kids, did you make mistakes today? Yes. Does mommy and daddy still love you? Yes, absolutely. Did mommy and daddy make mistakes today? Yes. So we all made mistakes. And in spite of our mistakes, does God still love us? Yes. And then we say, well, who are we because of Jesus? Well, we are God's children. Well, what is the Bible? God's true word to show me who he is and how to live. And what is the lastly one's like, what is our hope forever? That Jesus is coming back and we will live with him forever. And then I asked them individually, hey, so what was one thing? It says, what's one thing that you're thankful for? But I say, hey, what's one thing that made your heart happy today? And then they share with me something specific that happened today. And then we pray about those things, and we give God thanks for those things. But for me, it's like the Bible is God's word that shows us, hey, this is who he is. And he's been pursuing us from all time. And he's given us tools to live our life in a way that equates to human flourishing. There's like a tremendous amount of research that's coming out where, Harvard, Duke, like all these like studies are like, how can we like document some kind of systematized like structure where that equates to human flourishing? And the most consistent thing is being plugged into a local church and reading the Bible consistently. And like the research amount that is insane. It's not saying, hey, be the perfect Christian, go to the perfect church, live perfect. It's saying that the Bible are principles from a real God that really wants to have a relationship with you. And if you read his word, well, it's going to give you an understanding of who God is and who you are in that story and how to live my life. And if I use these methodologies, well, my life is going to flourish in a way that it couldn't if I push back against it. So for me, it's like my relationship with Jesus Christ. I pray, and it's like I don't talk to a random person in the sky. I have a relationship with Jesus, and the Bible tells us that when you put your faith in Jesus, he says that, you know, he was talking to the disciples, and it had to be wild. Like after living 33 years with them, he's saying, "Hey guys, it's a good thing that I'm going because the Holy Spirit's going to come, and the Holy Spirit's going to dwell inside of each and every believer." So God is triune, and God the Father, God the Son, Jesus Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so the Bible is, Jesus was saying, guys, I know it sounds crazy, but it's a good thing that I'm going because the Holy Spirit's going to come and dwell within each and every believer. So I have the Holy Spirit in me, the same God, the same power that rose Jesus from the grave lives inside of me, and I can have a relationship with him. The point of the Holy Spirit is for him to conform you and to compel you, and you to lean on him and to trust him and to commune with him. And that sounds a lot like a relationship, not a religion. And the big distinction from Christianity and everything else is that, well, most religions, all religions would say you need to know something or do something to be good. And the Bible says no one is good and you can't save yourself. So instead of working really hard to get your way to God, God comes down as a perfect man and does for us what we can't do on our own, dies, pays our debt, dies on the cross, raises again, defeating hell, death, sin, and the grave. And if you put your faith in Jesus, then his perfection is then bestowed upon you. Jesus Christ paid your debt. So you either can choose to accept that grace that we were talking about with David and Mephibosheth earlier. I can accept that I cannot save myself, but there is a saving grace that's offered to me that's beyond myself. And all it requires me to do is to surrender and to acknowledge to the fact that I can't save myself, but God provided a saving grace in the person of Jesus for me. And it, as simple as it sounds, it is that simple, is that I place my faith in who Jesus is and what he did. And I trust that if I just acknowledge that, if I put my trust in that, well, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to leave a lifestyle. I don't have to, change my language. I don't have to stop doing something. It's not about that. It's about accepting the only thing that can save me, which is Jesus. And then I get his spirit deposited within me. And then it's his job to sort out the stuff. If I'm doing that's different than he wants me to live, then he's going to sort that out. It's not my job. It's not my job to be perfect. It's not my job to clean up my life, to clean up my language, to stop doing X, Y, and Z, the way I'm dressing, the way I'm talking, the way I'm living, any of that stuff. It's not about me starting doing anything. It's about me accepting that there's been something done for me that I cannot do myself. I cannot save myself.
Really quick, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for anyone who's rolling their eyes and doesn't understand this, I can give you a practical example of this. Every time you want to watch porn from now on, just open up. I would recommend the New Testament, just because those are all the stories with Jesus. Those are all the ones that resonate with me the most. And instead of just spend 10 minutes reading it every time you want to watch porn, and do that. Before you do that, drop all your stories or preconceptions you have about God, because the only God you don't like is the made up story you made about him. So just erase any story you have about God and then just read that. And I promise you don't have to accept Jesus. You don't have to do anything. Just read 10 minutes of that, and your life, you will start noticing your life get significantly better. If for no other reason, maybe Jesus doesn't touch you, maybe God doesn't touch you, but the applicable tools in there and the way the behaviors are in that book, you will start mirroring them in your life, and your life will get better. And I'm saying this in the most superficial sense. you will be, everything better will happen to you, just like if you do CrossFit. Second question. And I know you got to go. I was always bothered by this fear of God, fear of God, fear of God. I have no fear of God in my life. And then I heard you call it reverence somewhere.
Yeah. So
and yesterday I read the definition of reverence like 50 times after, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is the relationship I have with God. Like what do you need? Like I wake up in the morning, what do you need? I'm here. Like,
because at the end of the day, like it's like the fear of God, rightly understood. It's not I'm afraid of him. Even better so, it's I'm afraid of being away from him.
yes.
If I have a reverence for God, that means I have a respect for God. And it's like, it's really about like me surrendering that there is an authoritative being over me, but that's not problematic if I believe that he has his best, like my best interests, that God, if it's true that he, the Bible tells us that he created us like in our mother's womb. He knitted us together in our mother's womb. And Ephesians 2:10 says that not only did he make us, not only did he form us from dirt and breathe his own breath into us. And when Adam opened up his eyes, the first thing that he experienced was a face-to-face relationship with God. Not only that, Ephesians 2:10 says that he predestined us, that we are his masterpiece. And he has predestined us for good works so that we would walk in them. So what that means is not only did God make you, he created you with a gift and a passion and a purpose that's not vague and big, it's specific and unique. And if you walk in the thing that you were created to do, guess what? You're going to be good at it. You're going to be successful. You're going to enjoy doing it. And it's going to be for God's good and yours. It's just going to happen to give him glory. So there's a personal God that knows you and loves you and created you with plan and purpose in your life. And he gave you the gifts and the talents to carry out that purpose in a unique way. So he loves you and he wants to be in a relationship with you. And if you understand that that's the kind of God he is, well, it's easier for me to wrap my head around, well, I need to have reverence for him and I don't want to be away from him. And so if I have reverence for him, I'm going to not be in fear. Like John chapter 14, verse 15 says, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. So if we understand the character of God, we won't misunderstand the tone of God. God is not saying, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to crush you. He's also not saying, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to withdraw and withhold my love from you. He's saying, if you trust me, you'll follow my commandments. In the same way, if I said, hey, kids, don't touch the stove, it's hot. I tell that to my first kid. Well, guess what? They don't know if the stove is hot. They assume that it is, but they're going to look at their little brother and say, hey, don't touch the stove. It's hot. How do you know? I trust my dad. So if we look at God at that way.
I was thinking about that too, how important it is that your kids respect you and don't damage that respect by disrespecting your kids.
Yeah, and that's the way that we should father our kids. It's like they should have a reverence for us, and then like in sometimes there's a fear, but it's not a fear of they're going to hurt me. It's like if I want to see tears from my 7-year-old, I'm not going to spank him. I'm going to say, "Man, you really let me down," and he's going to weep for 5 minutes.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to hear that from me, because he cares deeply for me and he doesn't want to let me down. So in the same way, if we have reverence for God, respect for God, it's easier for us to honor him, in contrast to say, I don't want to do what he says because he's withholding. Because that was the issue in the garden. It's like, man, does God really have my best interest? Because that's what Satan said to Adam and Eve. Did God really say? He didn't say, man, you should do that. You should get, you do you, boo. He didn't say that. He said, hey, did God really say this? I think he's withholding on you. He's holding out on you. And if you eat from that tree, then you'll have all this knowledge. Like you should eat from the tree. Like don't miss out. Don't miss out on life. Like I don't care what God says. Just do whatever you want. Feel however you want to feel. Eat whatever you want to eat. Just do it. Don't listen to God. So either I trust that God has told me to do something and I'm going to live my life in a way where I believe that his word is best, or I'm going to find out the hard way that I don't have my best interest in mind, and neither does the world.
So happy you came on. Two greatest takeaways for me in this podcast are one, men are so easy to manipulate. Women, if you're out there and you love your man, just tell him what my wife told me last week. Thank you for working so hard. And all it made me think is, shit, I just want to work harder now, baby. We're such simple creatures. I think and then the second thing is, really, truly remember, great people are great people. You may judge people for doing things that are really bad, but remember, powerhouses are powerhouses. People who are great and have tons of energy, you can't silo them. You have to learn to accept people, because these seeds will blossom, like the man we're looking at right here, Joshua Broome. We always knew he was great. Everywhere he was doing stuff, he was doing great stuff. And it was as simple as just one human being accepting him, and that giant tree flowered, and now we're all recipients of its greatness. Thank you so much for what you're doing. It's fantastic. I had no idea you were a CrossFitter. I just thought, naked people and Jesus are my two favorite subjects, and so I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so wild. So I went to the games in pretty much every year because I lived in that area. But I saw Rich win in 2010 and 2011, and I bought this shirt that had, the Galatians thing on the side, like his tattoo.
Yeah.
And then, so I bought that, 3 years before I became a Christian, and I got baptized in that shirt. But it was just so.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Have you
wow.
met him? Do you know him?
So I know Luke Parker.
Okay.
But I haven't met Rich.
Okay.
But yeah, so
hey, he doesn't disappoint. You know how they say never meet your heroes? Rich does not disappoint. When you meet him, you're gonna be like, oh my God, he's so great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's so fun.
Yeah.
He's like you. He's easy. He's easy as shit. It's just like, so he's like eating a sandwich.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's awesome.
All right, buddy. I love you. Thank you for everything you do. You're great. If you're in the area and you have time, I know you're going to be busy with Jason. I'm also friends with Jason, but if I'll stop everything I'm doing. I'd love my boys just to shake your hand, and thank you for spreading the love on the planet.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate
All right,
you
brother.
guys.
Have a good one.
See you, Josh.
Joshua Broome. I highly recommend the book, especially anyone who's 18 to 35. I agree. He got a lovely smile. Yeah. All right. I'm getting just fucking pounded over here by my kids to take them to gymnastics. Normally I leave at 9:15. I think this is going to be really, it's really powerful, because I think a lot of people struggle when they hear people preaching who maybe haven't lived a life that they thought a preacher should be living. But I think Joshua, it's very clear he had to go to the darkest corner and then come back to receive the greatest gifts. All right. Joseph Ramirez, 8.5 out of 10. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. You failed to ask him the most important question. Who is his favorite actress? I mean, I could have had him on for like 20 hours. I'd love to do a marathon with him. All right. Love you guys. I will talk to you soon, Caleb. Thank you. Peace.